laugh a lot, cry a little, and share just about everything we go through on our autism journeys with our sons, Kat and Owen. What we found the most helpful are amazing guests we brought on our shows and the wealth of information and knowledge that they bring to the Autism Moms community.
So today, at our very first Mighty Moms Autism Conference 2024, we are bringing you the best of the best, the cream of the crop. So we have amazing speakers here today.
We've curated a 5-star list of keynote speakers who each have so much to pour into the audience, their expertise, their knowledge, and wisdom. Now let's bow our heads for a prayer before we start our conference. This is my mother-in-law, Anna Sykes.
Dear Lord, Heavenly Father God, we come to you today just praising your name, lifting you up, God, and thanking you for being able to stand here today. I get emotional, I'm sorry, because this is an answer to about a 15-year prayer. And so, God, I am so grateful that you have instilled Rena and these hearts to go forward with all the challenges and everything that goes along with building an autism community. God, I thank you for what great mothers they are, God, and the experience that they gain. Lord, we just thank you for your grace that pours out among all the families, Lord, that have their challenges. I know that, and I pray today, a special blessing on these families, that you would just bless them in a way with your grace, your peace, and your joy, God, that comes from you among all circumstances. We thank you, God, for today. We thank you for this conference, God, and we know that when you're in it, it will not stay this one conference. It will grow. The community will grow. And we are so grateful. And we pray all of this.
Amen. Thank you, Anna. Okay, so without further ado, please welcome our first guest coming from the Center of Psychological Development, Stacey Anderson.
Can you hear me? Perfect. Well, I am Stacey Anderson with Center for Psychological Development and CPD Integrated Healthcare. I really appreciate the opportunity to get to speak today. Understand I'm not a speaker, I'm a diagnostician and a clinician. So I get a little nervous when I do these things. I can talk all day about diagnostic criteria or do assessment, but being in front of a crowd, little anxiety provoking. I've been asked today to speak with you a little bit about autism diagnosis. Understand that autism is a spectrum issue. I'm not going to call it a disorder. It is known as a disorder in the DSM-5. I don't see it as a disorder. I see it as a cluster of symptoms that helps that individual see the world maybe a little differently than we see it. They may interact a little differently than the way we interact with other people, but it doesn't make them disabled. Any diagnosis that we have can make us disabled if we choose for it to. I have anxiety. That could be a disability for me, but I choose to work through that, okay? So if we look at the definition of autism, the community says today that autism is diagnosed as a neurodevelopmental disorder characterized by challenges in social communication and interaction, as well as restricted and repetitive patterns of behavior. That can describe any of us at any time, based on anxiety, based on depression, based on how we were raised. But in looking at diagnosing autism, what we do is we utilize set standardized assessments that pick apart these little pieces of the diagnostic criteria. So before I continue, on the table over here are some handouts. The handouts are on the left side, my left side, your right side. They're going to detail a little bit of the diagnostic criteria for autism based on copies of the DSM-5. Also, the criteria for receiving treatment if you have Medicaid, because Oklahoma Medicaid is very specific about what criteria you have to meet within the pay for ABA. And then there's a handout as well that discusses ADHD versus autism, okay? So understand that autism spectrum disorder is an umbrella term. It encompasses a range of neurodevelopmental issues and concerns, including autism. You can have a diagnosis of autism or a diagnosis disorder. And what does that mean? Because there is a difference. If you look at autism, to meet the true definition of autism, you have to meet the diagnostic criteria as listed in the DSM-5, and that's very specific. And so with the handout over there, I'm going to reference that real quick, and I'm going to go over some things with you. Based on this, give me 1 second. So we have to have deficits in nonverbal communication and behaviors related to social interaction. We need to have deficits in social emotional reciprocity, which is how we interact and engage with each other. We have to have deficits in developing and maintaining relationships. So a lot of these things that we see in the new diagnostic criteria that came out in 2013 are a little bit different. So before 2013, in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, the 4th edition, it had multiple diagnoses listed under that autism spectrum area. So we had pervasive developmental disorder, we had Rett's disorder, we had childhood disintegrative disorder, and speak today, and a few other things. But what they did is they narrowed it down, seeing, based on the research, that it truly is a spectrum diagnosis. So now, instead of all of those things, we have ASD, level 1, level 2, and level 3. If you come in for a diagnosis or an assessment for autism, you're going to be given one of 3 assessments. It can be the CARS, it can be the ADOS-2, or the ADIR. What we are trained on in our office is the CARS as well as the ADOS-2. In the US, the ADOS-2 is considered the gold standard for assessment, but understand the ADOS-2, when you go to your certification training, is not just a diagnostic tool. You can't just administer the ADOS-2 and get a diagnosis. It has to be based on a clinical interview, the child's history, developmental related things, meeting developmental milestones, communication, as well as administering the ADOS and scoring at a set range. The ADOS-2 is also broken down by age, as well as whether you can speak with just a few words, if you're nonverbal, if you're an adult, if you're an adolescent. There's different protocols that we follow for each age group and based on how you communicate. Okay, so when someone comes in, it's going to take 45 to 50 minutes for the ADOS alone. If we do the CARS, that's an additional hour, plus the intake, which is an hour to an hour and a half. So you're going to spend 4 hours with us. Sometimes we rule autism in, sometimes we rule it out. Sometimes parents come in and say, I know for a fact my child has autism. We've heard from a family friend they have autism, and when we actually do the testing, they may not actually meet the diagnostic criteria for autism. They may have an autism spectrum disorder. It may be a language disability only. It may be a cognitive deficit, but it may not be autism. We're not in the business to overdiagnose autism, but what we are in the business of doing is seeking out those individuals that actually meet the criteria and then linking them to the services that they need. Okay? So research indicates that diagnosis early is the best option. So we actually test and assess individuals ages 18 months and older. When I was in medical school in Atlanta, I had the opportunity to be trained on the ADOS-1 as well as the MCHAT, which is a questionnaire used in a pediatrician's office, I should say, that links you to those services. And the MCHAT just says, yes, there may be a diagnosis of autism here, we're going to refer you for assessment. So pediatricians have been using the MCHAT for a while. They would get a score off of that, they would refer you for testing. The ADOS-2 then was a redevelopment and a redesign of the ADOS-1 that really started focusing on the communication aspects, nonverbal communication, social cues, and things like that. So the ADOS-2 being the gold standard, the reason for that is because it really is focusing on the new diagnostic criteria to either diagnose and rule in autism or rule out autism. So understand that with a child, especially a young child under the age of 2, you're looking for regression, a loss of previously achieved language skills, motor skills, and things like that. Maybe a lack of pretend play, or they don't play at all, a lack of communication, not making eye contact, lack of response to one's name being called, could be an overreactivity to sensory input, touching them or not touching them. Some children want to be touched and hugged or kind of squeezed a little bit because of the sensory input, and others don't want to be touched at all. For some individuals, especially the younger ones, the infants, just the breeze blowing on their skin can be overstimulating. And it's about finding what works for them, what calms them down, what reduces that those nerve impulses to the brainstem. Because once it gets to the brainstem, we know that the nerve impulses for individuals on the spectrum, it shoots out to all areas of the brain and it becomes overwhelming. So constant pressure or push sometimes in this population can be very calming because there's a lack of sensory stimulation in other areas and they're focused on that one area of touch. So remember, once the suspicion of autism is raised, especially in a young population, infant to 3 or 4 years, you really want to get them in to see the pediatrician because you want to have those milestones documented. You want the pediatrician to do the MCHAT and then make a referral for assessment. In looking for someone to do an assessment for autism, remember you want someone that's trained and certified in one of the 3 assessment tools that I mentioned: the CARS, the ADI, along with the ADOS-2. Remember, in the US, the ADOS-2 is the gold standard for diagnosing autism and assessing autism. Once you receive a diagnosis, once you spend the time with a clinician or a group of clinicians, they will sit down with you after the assessment and they may tell you that day what the scores are, what they need, and it may take a while to compile the data. If you look at the CARS assessment, it is something that can take up to an hour and a half. It's observational. You're making notes, and you may not want to score it at that time. You may want to look at the CARS in context with the MCHAT and the ADOS, put the scores together, look at all the information gained from that intake that you did, and then call the parent back in and discuss the results and what it might be or might not be. We don't ever want to overwhelm someone with a diagnosis. One of the things that we see in our office when we see them for autism testing is when their very young child receives a diagnosis of autism from us, we get a lot of tearfulness. What does this mean for my child? Are they disabled for life? And what we tell them is this is an opportunity for growth. This is not us telling you that your child will never be neurotypical. Your child just views the world in a different manner. They process things differently than maybe I do or someone else, but they can function okay with the right supports in place. And at that point, we make referrals to autism or other places because we want them to have ABA therapy, speech and language therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy. We want to support them in developing their cognitive ability to be able to link senses to those being normalized. We want them to communicate their thoughts, feelings, emotions, and needs, and we want to help them navigate the world as best as they can. So remember, when you are seeking out someone to do an autism assessment, you want someone that's trained and certified in one of those 3 areas. Once you get the diagnosis, if you're looking for ABA treatment in Oklahoma, it's very specific. It needs to have at least 2 signatures on the report. One of those has to be a licensed psychologist, where it can be a pediatric neurologist or a pediatrician that specializes in developmental disorders. I am not a psychologist. I do have my doctorate of behavioral health. I am certified to do the ADOS-2 and the CARS. So I work with my team, Dr. Hudson, who is here today, licensed psychologist at CPD Integrated Healthcare. We both review the data, we sign off on the report, we send it to the facility to ensure that insurance or Medicaid will pay for it. If an LPC, LCSW, or another clinician does an assessment and doesn't have one of those 3 signatures, the licensed psychologist, the neurologist, or the pediatric specialist, insurance and Medicaid won't pay. So you've done that work in vain. Just remember, when you go in for an assessment, you ask those individuals, what do I need to make sure that my child can get services he needs and it be paid for? Parents get really frustrated when they go in for treatment only to be told, we can't accept this because it doesn't have the right signatures. Okay? So that's basically all I have for diagnosing. I could do a 3-hour training on this. It would be very technical. Do any of you have questions for me about the diagnostic process? Yes, ma'am. So several school systems are trained in the ADOS, and several are trained in the CARS. It depends on the region. I know the Oklahoma City school system uses the ADOS, but in the Panhandle they're using the CARS, just because it's easier to bring in the family and sit down and do it together versus having the ADOS where you just take the child in and do the diagnostic assessment of the child. So it depends on the school district. every school different is a little different. And Texas does things drastically different than Oklahoma because I live in Texas. Their requirements are different. Texas Medicaid requirements are drastically different than Oklahoma Medicaid. We work in both states, and so we try to make sure that what we send out, the product and the report, meets the criteria so that you can get services paid. Okay? Any other questions for me? No, I appreciate you allowing me the opportunity to speak today. I'm available at CPD Integrated Healthcare. I'm going to leave my number today on the handouts. You all can text me anytime and I will respond back, or you can drop in and see Dr. Hudson and I. Thank you, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Stacy. That was some great information. He also had the table over here, like he said, that has the handouts, I'm sorry, that he was talking about. Our next speaker is Miss Cassie Woyette, also known as Brooke's mom. She is a mighty mom autism warrior.
I'm Cassie. My son is Brooks. He is now 5 years old. At the risk of sounding negative, I kind of wanted to keep this real and raw because I feel like that's the part that's not talked about enough. And I'm not a public speaker, but we're going to twist him on. So here we are. A little backstory. He was diagnosed with level 3 autism at 2.5 years old. We traveled to Oklahoma City to OU Children's. That's where we were referred to. It was an all-day. I think we were there like 6 hours. It was an all-day thing. He was also diagnosed with delayed developmental milestones. He is nonverbal. At age 3, he underwent surgery on both of his eyes to correct accommodative strabismus. And at age 4, he began having temporal lobe seizures. He's still undergoing testing for that, but he is on medication that keeps him somewhat controlled. His story is a little bit different. I know typically autism doesn't really show until like 2 to 3 years of age, but he seemed to be really delayed from birth. He never really hit milestones on time. He began physical therapy at around 10 months of age. Later on, they put him in speech therapy and occupational therapy. He still continues everything but the physical therapy now. After diagnosis, they recommended full-time ABA, which was 35 hours a week. In addition to his therapies he was already doing. The months leading up to, if I get emotional, I'm sorry. The months leading up to his diagnosis were really hard and dark because at that time, the unknown was very scary. He never slept, he struggled, he felt like, it seemed like he was in a constant meltdown. He was aggressive and violent, and we were just kind of at a complete loss. His dad and I are now divorced and we co-parent, but at the time, his dad worked on the road to provide because I left my career to basically be his full-time caregiver. My mom stepped in a lot, and she still does. If it weren't for that, I'm not sure I would have survived those days. It was very hard. I researched endlessly. Things started making more sense as more time passed. I know ABA therapy and a speech device have been a game changer for us. Brooks actually began ABA therapy at Radiant in Charlotte. He did that for 2 years. We drove all the way to Charlotte. We lived 20 miles away from Grant. So it was quite a drive for 2 years, but just do what you have to do. He now goes to Owen Academy, and we are very thankful to have something closer. He actually now is showing more interest in saying words. He's actually following commands. The aggression and the meltdown have decreased drastically. He knows his numbers, he knows his alphabet, he can line up the numbers 1 through 20. We still battle destruction, aggression, but looking back, we've made so much progress. Some of the things that I feel aren't talked about enough as an autism parent: sleep deprivation, exhaustion, everything you have to put your body through because you don't really have a choice. You know, you're pushed well past your limits. I think that's why like autoimmune diseases, anxiety, depression are common among autism parents. You can't just get a babysitter. You can't put your kid in regular daycare. You can't rest when you're sick. You know, on Obviously, you can't really even sit down. You're never truly relaxed. Basic needs are forcefully put on the back burner because you're a full-time caregiver and they require constant supervision, showering, using the bathroom. Basic needs have to be ignored. The ability to hold a job or a career is near impossible because between full-time therapies, doctor's appointments, early pickups, it makes it very difficult to hold a job, especially in 9 to 5. I actually went back to school for that exact reason, so I could do self-employment and keep a flexible schedule just to continue all of this stuff. The isolation that comes with being an autism parent can be detrimental. You can't attend normal events because it's extremely exhausting or it's stressful or it's not safe, so you stay home a lot because that's their safe place. It can be very lonely and isolating. But, you know, some of the hopes and dreams I have for my son, the main one being independence, and I think that's something we can all relate to. We pray for that for our children. I chose not to put him in public school this year. He's really thriving where he is, and I didn't want to disrupt that. He's very, very hyperactive, and I didn't think a public school setting would be a good fit for him right now. He needs more time. But it's sometimes hard to gauge just how smart they are because they don't talk. So, you know, he surprises us all the time. Like, we had no idea he knew his numbers 1 through 20 until he just lined them up in order one day. It's just, you know, they're just amazing. You know, when you enter his world and you sit down and play with him and you give him your undivided attention, you can just see him. It's just amazing to watch, especially watching him absorb things and learn. It just warms my heart. Looking back, I wish I knew then what I know now, because with time I've learned so much and I'm better able to pour into him like he needs. But, you know, hindsight is 2020. I think a supportive environment is very important, and I have had that. He has that on both sides of his family. And if it weren't for that, you know, I'm not sure what we would have done back then. And so if you don't have that, reach out because that's something we really want to create for everybody. It's very important. These children are wonderful and they open doors to an entirely new world that's so colorful and joyous, and it's just amazing. Thank you. And you're exactly why we wanted to build this community. Future planning and guardianship is something that we think about often as parents of kiddos on the autism spectrum. And here to share tips and strategies for future planning is our next speaker with Estes Law Firm, attorney Jamie Estes.
Thank you, Dee, for inviting me. Y'all are doing amazing things, big things in this community. It's really amazing, and I'm so thankful to be invited to be part of it. I'm an estate planning attorney. I'm in Texas estate planning attorney, so sorry, I'm not licensed in Oklahoma, but I'm going to speak generally just about estate planning. I think that will apply whether you're in Oklahoma and Texas. But before I start, if you'll look right over there, my wife is joining me, Montserrat, today. So we have a lot of stuff we want to give away. We don't want to take it with us. So we have hats and shirts and coffee mugs and things. So please stop by, put your name in. We're not going to keep your info or contact you. We just want to give away the stuff. So, but thank you for being here today. So I've been asked to speak about estate planning and guardianship as it relates to families with special needs. That's a very big topic. I could probably speak to you for 2 hours without thinking about it, but I'm going to spare you today. And I've boiled it down to 5 tips for you. 5 estate planning tips for families who have children with special needs. So the first one, meet with an estate planning attorney. Everybody say an estate planning attorney. It's going to be like church. And create an estate plan. Can you say estate plan? Estate plan. Now, I don't want that word to be a scary word. I was just talking to a guy yesterday about, he said, estate. That sounds like you gotta have like $1 million or something like that, so I haven't done any planning because I don't think I have an estate. Well, I don't want you to think of it like that. What it really means is the property that you own, your bank accounts, house, that's going to have to be distributed somehow, some way. And if you have, a family, a child with special needs, you need a plan. You want to make that process as simple and as easy as possible. So what I mean by that is creating a will or a trust. Okay? Creating a will or a trust. So Brina, don't answer this. Dita, don't answer this. Scott, don't answer this because y'all heard this before. Can anybody tell me, just venture a guess, the percentage of people that don't have a will in America? Percentage of people that do not have will plan in America. Anybody want to venture a guess? Throw out a percentage?
75.
60? 60?
90.
90?
75.
That's close. 70% of us, 70% of us don't ever create a will or a trust. That's a big number. So I also do probate. So we're the ones that unfortunately have to deal with this. So I'm an estate planning attorney, so I'm one of the attorneys you'd like to see. You like to see people are happy to come to our office, which is why I like doing what I do, except on the probate side. When people don't do planning, and I'm probably not going to give you very happy information, good information. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about the differences between a will or trust because I can take up a lot of time, but I'll just tell you basically, a will is the simplest type of an estate planning document you can do. That's why a lot of people like wills. They're very simple to create, they're cost effective. Two things about a will. They're in effect when two things happen. When you pass away, and when your executor gets an order. The executor is the person you name in your will to carry out your affairs. When the executor gets an order from the court that the will's in effect. Okay? So that a lot of people aren't aware of that. So wills are created to go through a legal process. And the process is different depending on which state you live in. But you just have to understand will planning. That's why a will's created, is to go through a legal process. So some people just think that, well, just because I have a will, whoever I designate can just start taking care of things. They can just start selling things, and the will's not in effect until the court looks at it, approves it, and we get an order. So that's just one thing to know about that. So we call that process, that legal process, probate. That's the process of transferring assets to your heirs. Now, trusts, revocable trusts, are a different type of an estate planning document. We call it a living trust because it's a living, breathing entity that gets created when you sign it. So it's designed to own property and to avoid probate. So if you do trust planning, if you set it up right, you shouldn't have to go through a legal process when you pass away to transfer those assets to your heirs. Whoever you designated as your trustee, that's the person that's managing that property after you. They're not going to have to pay an attorney like me to have to go through a legal process. So they're not going to have to wait to go through the courts. So those are the basic differences. Very simplistic. So just keep that in mind. Very simplistic. Those are the difference. But the main thing I want you to take away from that is have a will, have a trust, have a plan. So both wills and trusts allow you to name beneficiaries of your property, of your estate. They allow you to appoint someone to carry out those wishes. It's important for you to be able to control that. Because if you don't, the state is going to decide how that process is going to go. So it's going to happen one way or another, but the main thing is we want the process to be simple. We want you to pick the person who's going to be handling it, and make sure that it's very, very simple. Whether you do a will or a trust, it's important to be able to name a guardian. To name a guardian, or if you have a child, if you have someone with special needs, you have the ability to name that person who would be caring for them. So that's the only way you're going to control it. Because if you don't, then there's going to be a process, but you're not going to be in control of it, obviously, at that point. So that's one of the most important things as a parent, in my mind, that we can do, is to be able to name that person in those documents. And I know I'm throwing out different offices, but you can also appoint a trustee to manage their inheritance going forward. Who's going to pay their bills? Who's going to manage those things for them? You get to decide that if you do a plan. So the main thing to take away from that, I think, is you don't have to have $1 million for it to be important. It's just important to have a plan, just so things are simple and easy. So this becomes even more important if you have a loved one that has special needs. We all need a plan. We all want to make things simple and easy. When someone, unfortunately passes away, it's already a difficult time. But to add a complication to it, if you have a child or a beneficiary with special needs, that can cause some unintended things to happen that you would have wanted or never would have planned for. So if you don't have a plan in the state, either Texas, Oklahoma, or wherever you live, is going to decide who inherits from you. So the state has already laid it out, who your heirs are. The process is going to be much more complicated. It can be simple if you create a plan, but the process we're going to have to go through is much more complicated and more expensive and more time consuming. The property that you have may not be distributed the way you want it. Your heirs, especially if you have children with special needs, if they're on government benefits, Medicaid, any needs-based program, would potentially be at risk of losing those particular benefits if you don't have a plan to safeguard that in your documents, whether it's a will, whether it's a trust. There's things you can do to help protect those benefits. So if you don't do anything, those safeguards aren't there. If they inherit from you, whether it's through the courts or whatever, then they potentially would be at risk. And then the last thing is, if you don't have a plan, you lose the ability to choose who's going to be caring for your child, who's going to be the one carrying out those things for you. Now, another thing to keep in mind, each estate plan is different depending on your personal and specific needs. Just because a friend or a family member says, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that, I did this, I went to the attorney, told me to do this, you need to do this very same thing. Your plan should be very specific and uniquely, specifically crafted for your needs based on personal planning for your family, your children, what their needs are, so their plan may not be exactly like yours. So the takeaway is have a plan. Have a plan. Don't do online planning, LegalZoom, that sort of thing. Unfortunately, that has to be a big thing that we mention these days. I'm a do-it-yourselfer. So every day I hear on ESPN, go, contact this company. On the probate side, we get those documents every week, unfortunately. So your family is important to be able to cut corners and not talk to a professional. And that's kind of true with almost everything. I've learned it the hard way as well. So that's the first thing, have a plan. Second thing, if you have a beneficiary with special needs, ask your attorney if a supplemental needs trust would be appropriate in your situation. Well, another word for supplemental needs trust is a special needs trust. That particular type of trust for your beneficiary, your child, your family member, can be established in a will. It can be established in a revocable trust. It's secure. It protects your child, your heir, family member from possible exploitation from other people because they're not in control of it. Someone else is managing it for them. Because they don't have direct access to that inheritance, it's protected. It's not counted as a resource for government benefits. So they won't be disqualified by inheriting from you. So that's one of the biggest parts of it. So it won't interfere with their eligibility for things like Medicaid, supplemental security income. So these days, we don't have to disinherit children or heirs anymore that are on that have special needs like they used to way back in the day. Unfortunately, they had to disinherit them, maybe give that inheritance to another family member to manage for them, but you want to have it in a plan to make sure that money is specifically allocated and it's safeguarded and it won't interfere with their benefits. So the third thing, if you have a minor child with special needs, they're approaching their 18th birthday, and that child would not be able to manage their needs on their own, ask your attorney if a guardianship would be appropriate. Maybe it won't, but maybe it would. Guardianship is a court process. It's a court-supervised administration of a minor or an incapacitated person. So you wouldn't need a guardianship for a minor child if you're their parent, because you're their parent. You can make their decisions and manage their care. But you may, if you're the parent and that child's approaching 18, because you're deemed to have capacity when you're an adult until a court says otherwise. So if that child is turning 18 pretty soon, and they may need some help, and there's no other alternative out there because we have to explore all other alternatives before we pursue guardianship. We look at guardianship as the last resort. But, however, there are situations where that is the only answer we have, and guardianship may be something that you may need to look at. A guardian is appointed by the court to manage their physical care, custody, and control. So basically, when you're appointed as the guardian, you have the same rights that a parent has over a minor child. You can make all their decisions for them. It's court supervised. So it allows the parent to be able to continue to manage the care for that adult child and have the legal authority to do so. Because there are some situations where a parent may not be able to sign things on that child's behalf once they turn 18 or make their decisions, and maybe that's the only remedy. So if that's the case, just to put it in a nutshell, and this would be true in Oklahoma or Texas, it would consist, if you decided with your attorney guardianship is something that would be appropriate, it would consist of preparing an application with the court, and file it with the court. An attorney would be appointed for the minor or the proposed ward. There would be a hearing, and then at the conclusion of the hearing, you would give an order that says you are now the guardian, and then you're given letters. It's called letters of guardianship, and they're renewed every year once you file a report with the court, letting the court know how they've done this past year. But that's something that's available in certain situations that really solves a lot of problems. If there's alternatives, then we want to look at those before we do guardianship. Well, some alternatives to guardianship are powers of attorney. When a child turns 18, they're able to make decisions for themselves, that's when, as an estate planner, I do lots of medical powers of attorney, financial powers of attorney for parents, for that 18-year-old, so parents can help make decisions for them if something were to happen. And doctors will be able to talk to the parent, they'll be able to get medical information and financial information, but if the child is not able to sign a power of attorney, guardianship may be an option. Fourth thing, review your plan of care with whomever you will be choosing to serve as your child's potential future caretaker or guardian. Review that with them. Because the last thing you want is for them to not know anything about the person they'll be taking care of. So it's a really good idea to review that. Have a conversation with the future caretaker or guardian, or you can create a document, which we've done, called a letter of intent. It's informal, and it just lets you write down information such as their medical history, their medical needs, educational goals, their educational needs, what their likes are, what their dislikes are, what are their habits, what are their aspirations, what would be some future goals, like living arrangements, future living, what would your wishes be for living arrangements, their religious preferences, education, their career, or their lifestyle. So that's so helpful in my opinion, for someone that may be coming into the picture as a future caretaker or a guardian. I think it's a great way to ensure continuity of care for that loved one and to convey important details that would help them know what to do when the family member, when you're no longer able to be around to take care of them. The last thing, the fifth thing, I would say is review your plan every 5 years or so. It's a good rule of thumb. Review your plan if you ever have a major life event, what I consider major life events, obviously deaths of people that you've designated in your documents, in your will, your trust. I haven't really gone into disability documents that we all need, like your powers of attorney. We all need those. We need to have all of your medical power of attorney and financial power of attorney. People that are appointed to take care of us and manage things for us. And you do those with your will or your trust. But if you ever have anything major happen to anyone in your documents, review them. Make sure you have backups listed and substitutes. Another life event would be if you need to make executor or trustee changes due to whatever reason. That's when you need to review it. Divorces. That's another time to review your documents. Or changes in the distribution. If you change how you're planning on distributing things in your will or your trust, and that's an obvious time. That's it for now. But thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jake. That is great information. I can't believe though that next year we'll be going to court for tax guardianship. That's crazy to even think about. But having that estate plan definitely gave us such a peace of mind, because we're not invincible, even though we think we are. It's so important. So next speaker I'm excited to announce is Tammy Zell, and she's a special education advocate. Everybody welcome Tammy. She said, "Do I have to help?" You got it.
Well, my name's Tammy Hill. I've lived here my whole entire life. I'm pretty loud, but I'll resist. Yes, that was the teacher voice. My name's Tammy Hill, and I just want to start with, I'm not an expert, and I'm not a speaker. I'm a teacher. What? Now, my brother, his name's Scott. So I'm using Scott because I can't use my kids' names at school. But, so you got your diagnosis, and all I can say is everything that this autism group said is your life is not over, it's just changing. That's all. Your dreams are going to be different, and that's okay. I know I'm supposed to be talking about advocating in the school, and I will, but as a teacher, what helps me is when a parent comes to the table with that first meeting with everything I need to know about their kid. So we can start with something and not have to start testing again and figuring it out again, because if you've done all that already, you've already helped me. And we can just go much further. You know your child better than anyone else. And that makes me think about, don't forget who that child was before they were born. That child that you fell in love with. That child may not have been what you thought. It's going to be different. But you're going to be their biggest advocate, which will impact their learning success when they do start school. You're going to be making all kinds of decisions, and I just want to say that the decisions you make for your child is not wrong. They're your decisions, and you know your child better than anybody. And this, for example, is working together as a team that's only going to help your child when they start school. And that's all I had written down, because there's no internet and my PowerPoint isn't going to work. So now you get to hear just me talking from my heart. Oh man, are we mixing? Oh, I'm just okay. So let me just tell you a little bit about myself. My brother is 56 years old. I'm 4 years old. Do the math. Anyway, I will be going into my 30th year teaching special education. Now, I'm pretty ADHD, this is driving me crazy. To just be real calm, but I also have a PE degree, which I've used my whole life. So I just can make up my mind, I guess. But anyway, let me tell you about my mother. My mother is the biggest I can talk advocate you will ever know in your whole life. She was advocating when there was nothing for her child. She was advocating in the daycare because she had to work. And she was advocating to her doctor because they wouldn't listen. And she never stopped. And I've shared this with a few people, but I'm only 4 years older than my brother, and I don't think I thought he was special when we were little. I shouldn't share some of these things, but you know, my dad rode bulls. So guess what we played? We played buck and bull, and I said, stop right through the window. And there's no way I should have been doing that, but that's how we played. You know, we played outside that thing. But anyway, I was riding back one day, and I came by, and I just put him on the back of it, and I got cut his foot off. I just didn't see him as special, and that was because my mother didn't make him that way. He was different, and we did things differently, but it was just normal for us. He went everywhere we went. We didn't stay home. But test and more tests showed us everything that my mother needed to know, and then she took over. My mother instilled in me my whole life that these children are just the same as us. They want the same things, they're just going to do it differently. So if you can look at it like that, you just got to find those little loopholes. You got to find what works and just go with it. The other day, I guess I don't dress up enough. I came in the room the other day and had a dress on. This is dressy for me, so. And my brother goes, well, you look pretty. I just about died. guardianship has 6 names on it. So, something happens here, we're going here, or we're going here. And that's just my mother teaching my family how to advocate for your family with for special needs man. All right, that's my life growing up. Now my life in school. When you have 10 to 15 kids in a classroom, that they all are different. Even if they're autistic, no one's the same. So I'm begging parents, what works, what don't work? What have we done? What are we going to do? I need to know where to start. Now, and what worked for yours is not going to work for that. So sometimes I have to defend education just a little bit as we do know what we're doing, but it may take me a month to learn each kid everything that works so I know how to set up my room. Sometimes my kids come in, I'm like, sorry, I've rearranged my room. And a month later, I might do that again because I've got to make it work for those kids. Not for me, but for those kids. We had a meeting one time and our special ed director walked in with flashlights and styrofoam and sandpaper for us to put our hands on. And she started talking and rubbing that. And she's like, oh, y'all didn't like that? Well, that's how I'm teaching. We can't do that. We just can't do that. So she made a big point of this one don't like lights, this one doesn't like loud noises, this one did not like the feel of that desk. And you've got to know that there's no discipline necessary for that. I know that sounds bad, even in the worst temper. There's just ways around it. Humor works with me. We laugh a lot in my room, a lot. So if you know your kid, get them to the doctor, get the diagnosis, get the referrals, get the resources, find what you need for that kid, because when you bring that kid to school, you're going to bring to the table your knowledge that I need, so I know where to go from there. I speak in my words of those kids. Or sometimes I might be told I need to do this or I need to do that. I'm like, yes, ma'am, sir, whichever one it is. And they leave and I do my thing. Because I am there for the kid. I despise the second part of education. Sometimes they really get on my nerves. I think they mean well, but I don't know how many of them actually have special ed children. So I don't know how they could actually make laws and the things they tell us to do or not do. And IEPs get to be 40 pages long or ours. But if you as a parent come to school with everything you've done since they've been born, can you just imagine what we're doing? A lot. And so I just have 2 more things to say because I don't really know what else to say. Do you even know what this is? It's called Parents' Rights. You should get one at every single meeting you go to. It's only 26 pages long. And I don't know how many of my parents have even looked at it or read it, and they probably have 20 of them. But that is your rights. And every single thing you need to know where your kid is for. And it's not going to make you a bully because you come in there and say, I know what my kid needs. And this says blah, blah, blah. It does say blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, we're here to work together. And when you're in an IEP or an R, what we're doing is we're being a team. And sometimes in my meetings, I have speech, OT, PT, the admin, and anybody else that the parent wants to bring. And that is totally fine. I don't want y'all know that you can bring anybody you want to those meetings to help you advocate if you can. You can have outside testing. You don't just have to wait for us. You can just do anything you want. That's your child. That's what I'm trying to say. And just bring it to the table and be knowledgeable. So, the next time you go to the education, special ed, talking to parents' rights, and pick this off. Just go ahead and have it ready. It should be pretty close to Texas. I don't know exactly. But I'm a voice for those who don't have one. That's how I see myself. I answer for my brother a lot of times so he can answer for himself. But I choose to do it because it's faster. Because he may want to just stay with it. But it's just like even if they're nonverbal, they know what they want. They're just going to tell you differently. And I was riding my bike this morning and it became a very long ride because I was so nervous about this. And I just prayed. And the last song on my playlist was singing. Don't do that! That's one thing I don't do. There you go. I'm so country, my kids think I'll be able to sing, but it don't work. I'm just going to read a few of the lyrics out of it, and then I'll be done. Unless you have any questions for me. You're going to be okay. The sun's going to keep rising. The stars are going to keep shining even through the darkest night. So lift your eyes into the hills and remember where your help comes from. You'll never face the valley alone. And at the end of all of your breath, and when we're beckoned onto that light, love will meet you there and it'll give you the light. You're going to be all right. God allowed me to have a word like I have. Show me how to live life. I don't think I would have known. I don't think I would have been a special ed teacher. I would have been here doing this. God allowed Tad, Brooks, because look what it's done. There's so many services. Don't cheat your kid. Get with your lawyer. Get with Sooner Care. Do a start. Send it home. Medicare, PTSD, Social Security. Your child deserves every resource there is. And I don't have anything else to say except that my kids teach me.
Thanks for making us cry today. Timmy's was such a burst of energy. Obviously, we love her. Check out Mighty Mom's podcast episode 13. She was our guest and it was a hoot. Okay. Thank you, Timmy. So a lot of people don't know still that we have amazing services for children, not just on the spectrum, but who have any kind of extra need in the Durant community. And that is at People First Industries. And today we have here their director and our next speaker, Shannon Walker. Thank you, Shannon. And Shannon said the same thing Tammy did. She said, I'm not a speaker. So, but today you are. And we appreciate you so much. Thank you so much.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes, of course.
My brother works for PFI and can't stop talking enough about it when he comes home. That's all I've seen for us. So she's going to tell us about it.
I'm going to give you just a little bit of history on me before I really start talking about this. But, you know, I've had a great love for disability since I was a little girl. I was growing up in the Boot Hills, Missouri, and I was 9 years old, and my classroom was next to what they call the accommodation school, and that was for the children with disability. I would sit in class and I would get in so much trouble because I never paid attention in class. I sat there like this and I watched those kids play out on that playground, and if I get emotional, just, it's okay, all of y'all do too, especially about this stuff. But I sat there and I watched those kids. The only time in the year that we were allowed to even integrate with these children where it was the last day of school when they had a school-wide track meet. But they allowed some of those kids to pair up with those children, and that's what I did. But I had a cousin that was the same age as me. They called him a mama boy at that time. They didn't say he had Down syndrome. He was a mama boy, and one of the things that they would encourage you was, don't send your children to public school. You institutionalize them. Through the school year, you take them to St. Louis, and you drop them off at the school up there that's for those kind of children. And my mother was just devastated when her nephew told her, hey, Mama, we're going to take Sean and we're going to place him in the school. And she said, Sean, she said, Les, I want you to take a real good look at your little boy before you leave. She said, I want you to turn around and look at your little boy before you leave that school. And he dropped him off, and he turned around and he looked at his little boy sitting there with his suitcase beside him. And he said, Daddy, I love you. And when he said that, Les went and he picked his little boy up, he picked his suitcase up, and he took him home. The next week, he was enrolled in public school, and he was mainstreamed his whole life. We cannot put these people in a place where they cannot have their own voice and they cannot speak. They are going to turn 18 someday, and today, Sean still calls me every day. I see that phone start lighting up about an hour before I get off of work, and it's got all kinds of emojis like a telephone and a flower, and he loves me. But I've also been helping him because his mom and dad are older folks, and they don't know what is available to him either. And so it's just, he was my love, and that's where my love for disability started. But when I got married, I was a young mother. I had 2 beautiful children, and they were just fine. You know, I didn't think, what am I going to do in life? I'm going to raise my kids. That's all I ever wanted to do was be a mother and be successful. But I took care of over 70 foster kids for the state of Oklahoma. And I started learning resources for these children. I didn't get special needs children until a little bit into it, and then I got a little kid that had shaken baby syndrome. I started learning more resources and all of this for them. We was in it about 8 years, and a judge from Texas called us, and we had a nephew. It's my husband's nephew, and he was turning 18 years old. Then his mother died when he was 11. And his dad and stepmom took off and hid him from the family because they thought that we were going to kidnap him. So we let him grow up in the home. Well, when he was 18, a judge from Texas just called us out of the blue, and they had taken custody of him because he had been abused by his stepmother. And they had him in a group home over in Sherman, and they wanted to know if Tracy and I would take custody. So we closed down our foster home. We took Chuck in at 18, and he's 44 today. But on top of that, we got, I think it was in 2005, we also had a niece that was she was a lady of the street. She had 3 kids, and she had dropped them off at different relatives' house. Well, Cody was 18 months old, and we got guardianship of Cody. My children suffered a lot through that because these guys got more attention than they did. But they understood where Mom and Dad's heart was, and so their heart was in the same place. Still doesn't mean that they didn't suffer. They did without a lot because Mom and Dad were sowing so much into these boys. The first 2 weeks I had Cody, Josh cried. He said, Mom, please send me back where he came from. He said, I don't know how to deal with this. And I turned around and I looked at him and I said, son, I'm not sending you back. I said, we're going to learn to love him, and we're going to learn what's going on. We struggled. The Owen Foundation wasn't here to tell me what we were going through. There were no people in the schools that would advocate. We raised him up in a school where I couldn't get any help. I begged for parents. I begged for this, I begged for that. When they finally sent him for his first psychiatric evaluation, it knocked us on our rears. But I still couldn't get any help from the schools. There was not a teacher there that would advocate for Cody. When he finally got in 3rd grade, there was a teacher that would come to us and she would say, Shannon, I love this child. I love this child, and I'm doing everything I can. The next year, he was in 4th grade. That teacher was a seasoned teacher. And that year, at the end of the year, she retired because she couldn't take care of Cody and 13 other kids. And I looked at her one day and I said, all I did when I went for my guardian, for my parent-teacher conferences, was sit there and listen how bad Cody was. And I didn't say all of that because I loved Cody. And she would say, I can't even teach my class for this kid. We've got to figure out something. I don't know what you're gonna do, but you gotta figure out something. And I looked at her that last time and I said, how many kids do you have in your class? And she said, I've got 13, so there's 12 that's doing without. And I said, well, all I can say is I'm sorry, and I am so thankful you don't have a class of 32. But I had already been trying to get a parent. I've been trying, I've been begging, please, put a one-on-one with this child. And I'm with Tammy. Advocate for your kids because nobody else is going to do it. Cody, when he was finally in 8th grade, he had a spell that was so bad that we had to take him to the emergency room and he ended up in Oklahoma City. And for 2 years, he was inpatient. I went up there every week. I drove that car up there every week. I took him everything he needed. We went through the peanut and the pooping in the pants. We went through him getting so angry with these people because they wouldn't listen to him. I finally found out, even up there, he got 3 days of class time in the 2 years he was up there, classroom time. He was up there and they would set him outside or they would set him down the hallway. He was not allowed to interact with the other children. I finally had enough and I brought Cody home. My husband was very sick, and the first week he was there, he punched my husband right in the stomach where he just had surgery. And I continued. I was like, I'm not quitting. We're not quitting. We're not quitting. He went back to school. And again, I asked, I need a parent. He needs a parent. He can't be left by himself. They called him almost every day, 3 days a week before school was out because they didn't want to deal with Cody during the ends of school. So I was on my way to Tulsa. I was on the turnpike. I just got on there and I had one of my girls from work there with me. The school called and said, you gotta come get him or he's suspended for the rest of the year. And I said, what did he do? And she said, well, he exposed himself to a young lady here at school. And I said, okay, let's talk through this. I said, I want to talk through this. I said, I can't come pick him up because I'm on my way to Tulsa and I am not turning around. So you call my husband. She said, oh God, please don't let me call him. Because my husband didn't put up with anything out of anybody. And I said, no, this time you're going to get him. I had made my husband stay quiet that year because I wanted to be easy on the teachers. I knew they had a load on him. I know that Cody's not the only kid in the school, and I knew that something was not right, and I needed to find out what it was first. Well, come to find out, Cody had been in a classroom by himself all year. No teacher, no parent, nobody was in that room with him. That was his room he went to every morning. And Tracy and I knew this. I don't know if they knew that we knew this, but we did know this. He was getting work. He got work. He brought his work home. We worked at home. We did everything we were supposed to at home. I had never read this. Every year, and that's one thing that we find out about our clients that come to work for us. Their parents never read their rights as a parent. And so I started looking through stuff. My first thing was to pull his IP, and I pulled his IP. That IP was a year out of date already. And so I picked up the telephone and I called the school and I said, do you guys realize Cody's IP is out? It has been out for a year. What are we going to do about this? Well, within 15 minutes, I had an appointment to come in because your guy had been scheduled. When I got there that year, I walked in with this, and I walked in with a book of my rights. The state has them available to you. There's a whole book, if you don't know that. In that, I had all kinds of sticky notes stuck in that book where I could just flip to where I needed to go. When we got there, they brought me 2 IPs to sign. One was last year's IP, and one was this year's IP, so they would be in compliance if they ever got off of it. And I looked at him and I said, I am not going to sign that IP unless I date it today. I'm not dating that IP a year ago today. So I signed the IPs, but I didn't sign the new IP because there was things I wanted on that new IP. I was not allowed to put them on that IP again. The principal slapped that table and he said, sign the IP and we will get you what you need. And I just sat there for a minute and I looked at him and I said, one more time, I'm going to sign this IP. And I came back and I told Dr. Weiner was my boss at that time. He was the executive director. He had a degree in special education. He had been a doctor for special needs for all how many years. And he said, oh, no. He said, this is not going to work. He said, but before I left, I asked for a copy of both of those IPs. I wanted a copy of both of them. They brought me back one copy of my new IP, but not my old IP. And I stopped at the door and I said, I want a copy of that old IP. And they're like, why do you need a copy of that one? And I said, because I'm not going to have anybody change the dates on it. I said, give me a copy of that old IP. And I put it in my file. So this is the end of the school year that they called and they said, come get him. Well, my husband went out there, I called him. Cody needed to go to the bathroom and he had nobody to ask, can I go to the bathroom? So he got up and every kid in the school knew Cody. And every kid in the school knew every time Cody got in trouble. They knew all of Cody's problems because nobody was quiet about Cody. Cody ran to the bathroom to go to the toilet because when Cody tells you he has to go to the bathroom, you're going to be cleaning something up. And the special education coordinator went to the bathroom door and said, get out of that bathroom immediately. This little girl's still standing right here. She wasn't told to go on to class or anything else. She was still standing. And when Cody said, I'm using the bathroom, and she said, I don't care what you're doing. I said, get out of the bathroom now. Get out of the bathroom. And little girl got to see a little more than what she did, you know? But I sent my husband, I called my husband and told him what had happened, and he went to the school and he walked into the school. And he looked at him and said, Cody, go get in the truck. Because he did not want them to hear what he had to say. The principal said, Cody, sit down. My husband said, Cody, go to the truck. She said, Cody, sit down. That third time, he looked at them, he said, "You're not in control anymore." He said, "I'm in control. You suspended him, he's no longer your student. Cody, go get in the truck, and I'll be out there in a moment." Cody went and got in that truck, and he looked at them, he said, my wife has kept me quiet all year, because we were just going to see how far this went this year. He said, "I'm going to tell you people one thing right now. We know what things are now." And he said, "The day we start school next year, my son better have a parent. And if he doesn't, I will file due process on this school." And he said, "And then you guys will be in a load of trouble because we have documented everything that has happened since when he was in first grade." 2 weeks before school started, I got a telephone call that wanted to know if I wanted to come and sit in on that interview for Terrace. He got a parent, and those last 2 years at school were very successful, except they never called in Department of Rehab. Department of Rehab is very, very important to your children. Please, 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 before they come to People First Industries, they need to have already gone through Department of Rehab. Let them try to do their job. They can't help you if they don't. These guys are so excited to come to work. They want to work when they're 18. When Cody turned 18 and he graduated high school, they wanted to keep him in the public school for 2 more years, and I said, "Not on your life. He is going to work with me, and he's going to be successful." We can help them be successful. Go through Department of Rehab. If Department of Rehab cannot find them a place, they will give them a letter that they can come to us. And that is up to the age of with their 25th birthday. After their 25th birthday, they can come, we'll take them every day, and we will train these people on some skills where they can go out and be successful in society. A parent that is actually on our board, he did not even know that his son could do anything. He's nonverbal. Didn't know he could do anything. One day we had a laundry contract out there, and we made him come and stand behind a two-way mirror, and he watched his boy fold laundry, just like everybody else sitting out there in that workshop. At that time, that was our source. But today, we run a senior care contract for diapers, wipes, bed pads. Our adults with disabilities are catering to our 4 through 20 people that have disabilities in the state. They pull orders for them, they get them ready for FedEx, they load the FedEx truck. That stuff that goes on out there, we're making t-shirts. They know how to do the heat presses. They know how to package. They know how. Some lower functioning clients, they do know how to separate paper. They know how to shred it, but you know what? It's not in vain. We're doing it for companies. They know that what they're doing is very important. Now we have the immigration station across the street. If you guys haven't been there, you guys need to go over there. You guys need to watch some of these guys. They're actually training on the handhelds now. If they can work a video game, why can't they go take someone's order on the handheld, guys? You know? But just People First Industries, I am so proud of that place because you have no idea where they came from. Used to, they were just like everybody else. They didn't want anybody getting their people because those were their chicks, and they were going to put them right here, and they were not going to let them go out into the public because they didn't want people making fun of them. That's not today, guys. Today, these guys are so successful. We have 5 or 6 living in their own apartments. We'll help them. We will do everything we can, and if we don't have the resources, we will find resources for them. But start with that WIOA Act, and let's get these guys trained with the department. It's called Oklahoma Resource Services now instead of Department of Rehabilitation. But let's get with those. I could talk all day, but let's get them trained so we can take them out and give them a life as an adult that's just like you and me.
Thank you, Sam.
advocating and pushing for her child. That's a definition of a mighty woman.
With us today from Radiant Autism Center, where she is the CPA and Executive Clinical Director. Please welcome Samantha Cutler.
Hi, everybody. So we had a lot of people talk about support and all that stuff. So a center and an APA center and your PCA is one of those support people. I want to preface this with maybe that collaboration from the school, from the parents, and everything is just communication. It's just opening up and being like, this works, this just works. And so one of the main things I have talked about also for parent training is elopement. Elopement is one of the biggest things. It can be a kid wandering off just out of curiosity, right? Like he's just gonna walk away this way because he might have saw something, or a sensory need where he's going to spin. And he's just gonna keep spinning and you keep getting attention to come back to you, right? There are so many things that go into elopement. So we want to just break it down in what we call the ABA world. We're going to talk about the 4 functions. So if you learn anything from my talk today, it is SEAT. I'm going to ask you to take a SEAT multiple times. So we're going to break it down because it all comes back to that. Everything in ABA is based upon 4 functions of behavior. So our S, sensory. Okay? And when we talk about the 4 functions, it goes with our why. Why do they do that? So if you come to talk to your teacher or your husband or your wife or your mom or your BCA, they're like, why do you keep doing this? Why? You need to take a seat. SEAT, sensory. Okay? What can happen for sensory needs? Sensory needs goes anything like this. Who just needs to run. He's gonna run back and forth because that is what he needs. He needs that what we call output. Right? So no matter what, he's gonna run. He's gonna spin in circles, he's gonna wrap his hands, he's gonna jump. So I want you to recognize that going into a situation. That is the first function, sensory. Our next one is E, escape. That is, I don't want to do that. No, I'm saying no, not compliant. She's saying no, thank you. It is when you place a demand and they are choosing to not do it. You'll see this in action of, I'm going to run away. She said, come here. She doesn't want to come here. That was a demand. That was he's escaping what you were asking him to do. Escape is number 2. This is our favorite. A, attention. What everyone does for about almost everything is attention. How many times have we been in the grocery store, in Walmart, and all of a sudden, little boy looks at you, giggles, and runs down the other aisle, right? He wants you to choose attention. That's all for attention. And it happens in grocery stores. It happens, hey, we gotta get ready to go to school, put your shoes on. Same smile, they look right up at you, and they run the other direction. We see it all day long, right? Attention. We're really going to talk about that one. Last one is T, tangible. And tangible can be anything from toys, people, activities, or places. So I really want you to open your world so it can be more than just toys, right? It's something they want, it's something tangible they can get, especially when it comes to activities. Let's say you are trying to leave for school, but brother is on summer vacation, and he needs to go to AV, but brother is playing a video game. That activity, that tangible, that remote control is what he wants. So him coming towards you and then running back to the game is where he's motivated, tangible. Okay? So, what do we do about this? So if we can say, yeah, I know the 4 functions all day, right? SEAT. Okay, so how do we know if it fits, or what he did or she did fits into one of those functions, right? That is the question of the hour. So, you look at your situation, okay? If you are going somewhere and you are nervous, anxious, like you're going to be in a park with a birthday party. You're at a park, right? And you know it's not fenced in, it's not anything like that, and you have a kiddo that loves to run, and loves to spin around, and loves to jump around, and just needs that sensory output. How dance party before you get to the park. You need an outlet before you go somewhere. So what I tell parents all the time is, okay, there is no shame having a dance party in your car. There is no shame in blasting that music, opening those doors, doing Simon Says, getting him to jump up and down, spin around as fast as he can, because all of that energy, all that output he needs, he can do right there. The key to this is just because you did it once doesn't mean that 2-hour birthday party, he's not going to want to run again. Okay? So if you have a sensory kiddo, you need to know that you're going to have to do it again maybe in an hour. Okay? Hey, you've been so great. You sat with your friends so well for the first even 5 minutes. Great. Come play tag with mom. Let's go run. He's with you. He has that attention. He's getting that sensory output in an appropriate way. So that way he's not seeking it to run out when everyone's, singing happy birthday, eating cake like that. You've already given his output before that. Right? So it's being aware of what they need and doing it before they seek it out. That is the bottom line of sensory. So even if you think, hey, maybe he needs it, maybe he doesn't, do it. There is no harm in just doing it and giving him that extra input before he seeks it out. Okay? Any questions on sensory? Yeah. Yes, great question. So that is where we call, and I'm going to pull a little OT, not my category, but what we use, what we call sensory diet. And so as a mom or as a guardian, you schedule it out if you're going somewhere, even in your house, let's just say it's a Saturday, and you have laundry to do, you have dishes, all the things to do, and you're like, hey, he needs to move, right? She needs to move. Every 15 minutes, I'm going to come in and I'm going to do something with him. There's no commands. Let's swing around. You have his arm, okay, he's in your arms, you're squeezing him so tight, anything sensory. Playing music, he's modeling you music. You play ball, throw a heavy ball up in the air, throw a heavy ball down. It can be for 2 minutes, but every 15, every 20 minutes, we're doing something, and he's like, oh great, this is an output activity for me to do. A backyard, just running, just watching you run, and you follow. Right? Anything like that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be commands, which is great. It can be what they want to. Even swinging sensory things, noises, anything like that, a sensory activity to give him or her output at a designated time before he or she sees it out. That's a great question. Any other questions about sensory? Okay, escape. So this is a really fun one because when you put it into real life, we realize that we say demands all day long to our kids. Come here, put on your shoes, come sit down, stop doing that, please don't do that, anything like that, all day long. If we could count on a list of demands of how many times I said that to my son this morning, it's just out of the world, right? And we don't realize that. And so whenever we are asking them to come here, put on your shoes, and stand next to me, that's 3 demands right there, right? And they're like, no, because I'm not going to get anything for it, right? So you asking me to do this, my motivation is a lot more fun for me to run away and escape because I don't want to get in the car. I don't want to go, I don't want to put on my shoes. I don't like those shoes. They're not the color I want to wear today. Everything, and even the fact that they can't communicate all that with us sometimes, their body language tells us that by running away, right? So what we need to do, again, before we get there to that demand, we use what is called the pre-nap principle. First step. What do they really want? What is the motivation of today? And honestly, that motivation of today, right now, in that 30 seconds, not going to be the same motivation in the next 5 minutes. So you also need to be aware of that too. It's going to change. And all you got to do is change with it. You just keep going. You change with it. So for my son, it's one of those that I'm like, he loves veggie straws. Veggie straws are the best thing in the world. And so I save those veggie straws for when I know we have to leave outside of the park. And that is my demand. Okay, we're all done. That's my demand. So I say, hey, okay, first, get in the car, then veggie straws. Right? So if you say it ahead of time, you set the goal, you set the principle. Right? So there's no negotiation, there's no bribing, there's no, okay, well, you don't want veggie straws today, then there's candy, then there's this, and there's this. What they learn is, oh, if I keep whining or keep running away, mom's going to keep bringing out better and better things for me. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, these functions. So you can have demands that can fade into attention, right? So I placed a demand, hey, we're all going at the park, come get in the car. First my demand was a demand, and then it turned into a game of chase, because now I have to go get him, right? So now we have two functions that we're working on. So with attention, what I love to tell parents too, and it is by no means easy, I know that, it is by no means easy, we all do it. It's not, I can't stress that enough. So me saying this is, I'm working on it, we're all working on it, and so whenever you go and tell someone that you're like, hey, that didn't work, or this is hard for me to do, be honest with it, because attention is hard. Attention is the hardest function, because mom and dad, you guys need a break. You need a break, you want a break, you know what I mean? You want 5 seconds on that couch to just sit there and be like, hey, I don't want to see you, I don't want to rub your back, I don't need to give you squeezes right now, right? So the reality of that is, how can I build that into my day so that I can build myself a break too, right? So if we look at the whole day, we're doing attention. Again, build it so that they don't see it, right? And so things I've done with parents before is have special mommy and me time, have special daddy and me time, have special family time. And if you make a religious schedule in there, they know, hey, after dinner, I have special mommy time. So you can say, if mom needs a second, okay, I know, hey, mom needs a second, but remember, we're going to mommy time in 2 minutes. You set a timer, right? You set a timer, he knows. And when you're in that mommy time, he is the world, he already is your world, but he is like having a lifetime party. And then you can go to daddy time, and then you guys get out of bed, and then it's family time. And then if that doesn't work for today, it's one of those that it's okay to. When you're walking by in the grocery store, you rub their back. Just a little attention. Eye contact is attention. Singing a song with them is attention. Anything that you do together, holding hands, is attention. So if you're continuously giving these little things, they're not going to seek it out as much whenever you need to go somewhere so that they run away for that game chase. Any questions with attention? Or any more tips they want on attention? We all agree attention is probably the hardest one because we all want to do. It is honestly the hardest. And so I can't stress this enough. If you talk to other moms, talk to other family members, talk to everyone, because they may have tips and tricks that other people that they've tried that work, right? So even, I can't stress this enough too, tell your BCB, I tried it and that didn't work. The honesty of that goes so far. Hey, I tried that, it just doesn't work for my family. What's another idea? We have a whole bunch of research articles that we can pull out and be like, yeah, we can try this one didn't work because of this. Just the honesty behind that and telling us will go tremendous miles of that communication. Just say, hey, it doesn't work, or I didn't like that. It didn't work for our family. Can we switch it? Can we do this? Just be honest about it. Last one. Intangibles. Always love to go run for toys. We always love to run to somebody else. We always love to run to another fun activity. If bubbles are going on over here, there's no way my son's gonna come over here and do some homework. That's just kind of the obvious truth, right? Even if I get him over here, he's gonna leave and he's gonna run back over there. Again, rematch principle. First set your expectation. Set them before the behavior occurs. That is like setting a rule and following through with the rule. So tangibly, you can pause, you can always turn off those bubbles and say, hey, come finish your homework, and then bubbles. Bring those bubbles, set them right on that table. And say, great, homework first, then bubbles, I have them right here. Right? You can always bring that toy, you can always do that. You can say, my son loves to do this, and I say bath time. Hey, it's bath time. Run right away, no one wants dad. All of a sudden, dad's his favorite person, right? Because I said bath time. So he wants, so I said, great, dad's gonna take you to bath. So know that's coming, hand for it. Any questions about the Okay, so only thing you need to take away, SEAT. Learn the why. And if you don't know the why, talk to somebody. Just like we talked about all afternoon. Just talk to somebody, talk it out to somebody. How you view it, a biased third party may say, yes, I see where you're coming from that, but you did say a demand first before it turned to attention. Or you did say it was a tangible before it turned to attention. Right? So there are different ways of seeing it, especially when you remove yourself from it. So key points, SEAT, and sorry, and Bobby is going to hold for the
And so, and all our moms that have nonverbal children, I've been waiting to hear his speech. So thank you for coming, Jay.
My name is Jacob Thornton. I am 28 years old. I am employed full-time as a security company. I graduated from Grayson County College with an associate's degree in information technology. I was not sure if I wanted to continue my degree, but would still like to continue pursuing my academic goals at Southeastern University. I am a runner and have belonged to a local running group. Takes on my area runners. I have enjoyed volunteering at multiple locations, local dog shelters, family homes in Grayson County, and local mental health offices similar to this. I have a wonderful supportive family, a great group of friends, and they seem girlfriend and dad. I know she's awesome. That's a different conversation. And I do all this living with autism. I was diagnosed with autism back then, PDD, pervasive developmental disorder, at age 4. A late diagnosis by medical standards. I completely lost all of my existing vocabulary. I spoke roughly 10 words. I stemmed or hand clapped for hours on end. I repeatedly rocked for 4 to 6 hours a day. I had equilibrium and would repeat small phrases or words over and over for hours at a time. I did not look anyone in the eye or appear responsive to any physical interaction. I would not allow hugs or touch any atypicals, someone on the spectrum, retreat into another world. I would not allow hand holding, so outings to the store, bang, or pick up siblings from school or all of it. Church was impossible due to many sensory issues and sounds. I would allow my younger sister to interpret my grunts, but I lost all vocabulary, and she became quite skilled at it, almost a twin speed. I mean, it's true, like, always like to go to red, so I just work my mom when I go to red, and I was just like, oh, you know, what's out. My mother has talked through the years about doctor telling her the diagnosis. They recently determined, after my dad had gotten out of the military, started his medical practice. We had to start all over with a new pediatrician who immediately diagnosed me and referred to me with a well-known pediatric neurologist in Dallas. He calmly looked at her and said, "Miss Gordon, son is profoundly autistic. He will not regain speech. He will not show emotion. He will not allow you to touch him. He will not be able to live at home and be in an overstimulated environment with your other children. There will be no improvement. There's no cure for this disease. My recommendation is to be a facility. I will give you some suggestions for long-term therapy in the facility." My mom replied, "Did you get all that information from a book?" I mean, the way you saw it kind of sounded like it. The doctor smiled smugly at my dad, but also at the physician, and said, "There are several initial studies out on the increased number of diagnoses. This is a textbook case. It is in several medical journals, so yes, the information came from it. For those of you that person know my mother, her rebuttal to him will not surprise you. She said, "Oh, he will live with us because he is our child. He will write a different book for you to read someday." Well, we will. I became entrenched in speech therapy, occupational therapy, touch, sensory therapy, physical therapy, behavioral therapy, later everything. I did pet therapy and had a great dog that hung out with me during speech. Instead of hand clapping, I would pet him and talk to him. So then, he came with me to almost all of my therapies. I overheard constantly exhaust society, having someone like me in your classroom. Have the energy to teach, challenge, advocate, and be consistent in gaining my trust and hope is a true talent to be given. One of my heroes, Wolverine, a successful adult on the autism spectrum, often states in her speeches, "I cannot express enough the importance of a good teacher." Every one of my teachers would be on board with the thought there's something to try that my mom had heard about. I had tried several athletic groups in high school. I needed those endorphins to balance me for this activity. I could not find anything that really filled me in that I enjoyed. I did do powerlifting and got some enjoyment from that. It was toward the end of my senior year of high school that I discovered running. It is a huge sensory issue, obviously. Sweating, noise, outside elements. I have completed over 70 races to date, running my first marathon in Dallas in December of 2017. For me, running in a race is a lot of preparation. I always like to know the road ahead of time. I have a lot of visible markers or volunteers on the route and be comfortable. Overcoming the anxiety of being in a crowd and preparing for anything out of the ordinary. My mom thought the first race would be easy. She showed me the map and walked me through the route. We discussed what would happen if I went off the route, and she finally said it would be easy. Just follow everyone else. So she didn't realize how fast I ran then, and that everyone was following me. I came in first place on my first week. College was a challenge too. I learned when I was learning how to drive that my vocations would not always be a lesson for me in your typical world. The world will not change for us. We are very little people in the autism world. And my mom was teaching both my sister and I how to drive at the same time. We're on the back road of my neighborhood and it's elementary school to practice car driving on the road. My mom said, "Jake, how fast are you going?" Look at your speedometer and tell me. And I was like, "I can't." My mom turned to her seat and said, "Why can't you tell me how fast you're going?" I replied and said, "Well, I replied in true autism fashion. And you told me not to take my eyes off the road. I can't look at you." I mean, what's more important than the obviously, but the road too.
You're right, you're right.
I mean, see, very good. I struggle with sharing my story with you today, finding hope, even to be personally. As autistic individuals age, we tend to get multiple diagnoses, either schizophrenic, bipolar, depression, as if it wasn't enough with autism alone, simply because of our behaviors or our inability to interact with the world. These new diagnoses will have the word manic attachment. Mania to me, excitement manifested by mental and physical hyperactivity, disorganization of behavior, and elevated energy. Some synonyms for mania are derangement, insanity, madness, and lunacy. Many of those I felt trying to navigate adulthood as an autistic adult, despite a supportive family, resources that most did not have. I still struggle in my way of thinking, trying to find solutions that aren't practical. It hasn't been until recently that I realized the amount of work, dedication my family has invested in myself. And it's odd the memories that my older brothers have of my mom sleeping on the side of my bedroom because I never slept. I never did have our child sleeping until the day. And she couldn't afford it. The therapist who became my family members to us. Yes, my speech therapist has attended all my graduations and most of my speeches. She lived in Arkansas. Or away from me to play soccer and make friends, but not really at school. So my stepdad signed up to be on the same team as me. Each member of my immediate and extended family member has documented whatever element needed for me to experience as much as possible. your child better than anyone else. I will tell you to trust your gut. Read books, educate yourself, learn more choices and options you have. For those of us that can't speak, we hear everything you say and see everything you do. Actions and words are our lessons. We are storing them away to tell you in the future. Do not say we love you sometimes, but it is the very most. Every hand clap, every raise of your own, every understanding word. To all the parents and caregivers here today, the purity and power of your love is what gives us the motivation to treat you. The way we receive it, and the space we live, that is how we are hope to you. Thank you for providing this hope for us.
Because we knew that you give all of us autism moms and dads so much hope. We're told our child will never do certain things, and there he is doing all the things, even has a girlfriend. So Jake, thank you for sharing your story and giving us so much hope. Our next guest speaks about health and autism. Please welcome Chief Biohacker Chip Hall.
Oh, thanks. So my name is Chip Hall, and I do biohacks. That's what I do. But thank you guys for having us, first of all. And God, what a wonderful community you guys have around autism, and what great resources you guys are providing, with education and all the things that you do at the Owen Academy. So congratulations. And this is new, right? So autism hasn't always been this way. It's been, like a lot of people have said, just tough. But what I'm going to talk to you about a little bit today is, who here has heard about the endocannabinoid system? You guys heard about the endocannabinoid system? All right. And most of us think that system, so how many people here immediately think of marijuana? Think of that system, right? So that's what most of us do. Well, I study this system. It doesn't mean I smoke a lot of marijuana. I actually study the system as a research scientist. And I forensically study the system. It's bigger than, let's just say, marijuana. And this system, it turns out, is our master regulatory system. And I'm going to tie this back to autism a little bit, because it's multiple times. Autistic people, all autistic people have lower circulating endocannabinoids. Okay? So that tells us something about autism and something about this system that they're tied together. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this system, and we'll talk some about the gut biome and all that. But some hopeful things, I would think, about kind of where we are in research and what things are looking like, and where research is with this disease state right now. Okay, so let's walk through a little bit of that. But first of all, a little bit about the endocannabinoid system, and just some general principles. So, God is a perfect engineer. You guys all agree with that statement. And what I mean by that is that God engineered us all in a really cool fashion, in that we're just a collection of cells. Every organ is just a collection of cells. Our brain is just a collection of cells. Our blood is just a collection of cells. So we're just a big kind of meat puppet bag of cells. That every cell inside of us is always striving toward perfect function. We kind of learned this in high school, right? You can, destroy a cell with all kinds of stuff. We'll just divide, and that guy will strive for a perfect function. So all that to say is, it doesn't matter how sick I get you, how old you are, how messed up you are, everything inside of us is always striving for a perfect function, right? And you think, oh, well, I see a lot of sick people out there, and a lot of people, don't look like they're striving for a perfect function. Well, that's because it takes something for us to decline. So it takes an insult, it takes an injury, it takes a genetic thing. But for most of us, it takes a pathogenic thing. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as it relates to autism. But anyway, the endocannabinoid system. So the endocannabinoid system is something that we all have. It's something that is ubiquitous to most life on the planet. So everything with a spine has an endocannabinoid system, which is pretty cool. Now, what does this system do? Well, it turns out it's our master regulatory system. And it's not just our master regulatory system, it's the master regulatory system in your dog, and your cat, and your sheep, and your bird, and your fish, and your lizard, and a lot of other stuff on the planet. So it's not just us that has the system, it's a lot of other stuff. But how this system works is really cool. So it doesn't work on marijuana. Your dog's not going to go down to the dispensary here in the corner and fix his endocannabinoid system. It works by dietary fats. How uncool and unsexy is that? It's way better than saying it works by marijuana. But no, it works by dietary fats, okay? But this is super important because what does this mean? It means every day we configure our master regulatory system by the fats that we put it on now, okay? So, pretty important stuff to know. Now, how does this relate to autism? Well, it turns out that, again, like I said, autistic people are low in circulating endocannabinoids. Now, our main endocannabinoids, so you have a main one called anandamide, and again, autistic people are lower than anandamide. Anandamide is like our engineering control surface. So if I want to do something in my body, if I want to upregulate an organ or downregulate an organ or change the status of an immune cell or do anything in my body, I'm going to use the endocannabinoid system to do it. All right? If I don't have enough control surface, I'm not going to be as effective at doing things as people who have more control surface. It's just that simple, okay? So I don't have enough control surface to do everything that I need to do. Now, the other thing about the endocannabinoid system is it's intimately involved with our immune system. Okay, so how we defend ourselves against pathogens and all kinds of stuff. And again, if I don't have enough circulating endocannabinoids, I'm not going to be as effective at generating an immune response unless I have autism. So we'll talk about that in a second. Because you guys know this, if you have autistic kiddos, they have a different system than you and I have, and there's a reason for that. There's a deficit for that, and a makeup that they do that's really spectacular and godly that we don't do because we have normal amounts of endocannabinoids, or normal portions. All right, so we have these endocannabinoids, they're circulating in us, they're making us do things, but where do they come from? So again, they come from dietary fats. Now, when you eat an omega-3 fatty acid or an omega-6 fatty acid, you are eating the precursors that you need to build an immune system, okay? Omega-3 fatty acids cause us to deflame. That's pretty important right now. Not any of us eat enough omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-6 fatty acids cause us to inflame. If we dysregulate those, if we're not eating a 1-to-1 ratio of omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, then if we do eat a nice ratio, we set a real loose spring. So we're real able to inflame or deflame, and that's kind of what we want to be able to do as far as the immune response. What we do right now in our diet is we eat about a 1-to-40 ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acids. And that creates this real tight spring, meaning that we're real reactionary. So any inflammatory stimulus, because we eat more omega-6s, is going to cause a giant inflammatory response inside of us. And this is general, so this is all of us kind of doing this right now. But for autistic folks, again, they don't break down fats in the same way that you and I do. And there's a reason for this. If I disrupt your biome in a certain way, it's going to break your ability to break down these fatty acids and build endocannabinoids. And if I break it in the way that it likely is broken in autism, it's going to be very difficult to build a whole suite of chemical mediators that we need to not only run our immune system, but run our neurology, run all the sophisticated processes that we need to run. And this is what it looks like it's happening in autism. Again, don't have enough circulating endocannabinoids. The two main enzymes that we have to build endocannabinoids are both sort of fit and start in autism. One of them is called delta-60 saturase. It's involved with carsamitol, with acetaminophen, with Tylenol. So a lot of you guys, again, you might have a vaccine situation or a Tylenol situation that happened around the time that autism showed up. Well, the reason, again, the underlying reason for this has to do with an enzyme that breaks down endocannabinoids. But here's kind of the cool thing, is that in a godly way, if we're broken in these enzymes, we have a gut biome. And this gut biome will offset the stuff that we're not making from these dietary fats that we're not breaking down the right way. So this is why the autism gut biome is so interesting and different, right? And it is very interesting and different. But it's literally saving their lives. It's saving their lives. Because that biome is making all of these short-chain fatty acids that are needed to offset the fats that they're not getting. And they're basically the breakdowns that they're not getting. So, one of the cool things about all this is, again, if you've got kiddos, they likely like a lot of salt, right? Salt will neutralize a lot of these short-chain fatty acids that are caused by this sort of disrupted biome. But at the same time, this disrupted biome will allow them to walk through a room of COVID people who never get sick. If you have autistic kids, their incidence of cancer is 0. And it's because of this altered kind of immune system that they have to build. Now, so what can we do about all this? And is there research going on to fix all this? Well, first of all, advocacy-wise, every single person in this room can do something to help the amount of dollars that goes to autism research right now. So your tax dollars pay for autism research through the National Institute of Health. There's very few of your tax dollars right now targeted to autism. Okay? NIH doesn't fund a lot of autism studies, and you can satisfy yourself. Just go out to PubMed and you can see all the studies that are funded. So how do we change that? Again, 4% of males will have autism, right? So it's something that we need to be studying in a great way. But again, it doesn't change without screams and without hearing your voices. So be loud and be loud about your tax dollars and where your tax dollars go, and your tax dollars need to go to research. But where the research is headed right now, and again, what it's looking like is it's gut biome research. But as unsexy as this sounds, it really has to do with bile acids. And if I can alter your bile acids in a certain way, and certain bacteria do this, then it's going to negate the ability of these enzymes to work and these endocannabinoids to be built. This looks exactly like the pathology of autism, like study after study. This is exactly what this looks like. But again, it's looking like this is fixable. Okay? So we don't have this all figured out yet. But certainly, this is the autism loop, so to speak, this kind of biome endocannabinoid system thing. That there is ways to get in the middle of this loop and begin to fix this loop. So that's the great hope. And I would say 5 years. We're roughly 5 years away from some very significant therapies. The pharmaceutical industry isn't really, focused on this, I would say, right now. But there are a lot of independent researchers who are focused on this, and there is a lot of work being done on autism. Again, will, let's say, endocannabinoid therapies work? There's a lot of things that will work for autism, as you guys know. So there's a lot of, let's say, therapies, there's a lot of herbal therapies, there's a lot of herbal type treatments, anti-parasitic type treatments that will help with autistic symptoms. So, the biggest thing is to begin to sort of start the talk, if I can do it at all, and it's difficult, I know, but if I can start with diet and begin to make dietary changes. What do those dietary changes look like? The biggest dietary additive that we can all take is omega-3 fatty acids. The more omega-3 fatty acids that we can take, the more that we stimulate this enzyme machinery that's kind of messed up. So omega-3 fatty acids is a huge thing. Behavior-wise, again, this is a tough one, but intermittent fasting is a big way that we can all begin to protect ourselves from pathogens and from, let's say, disrupted biome situations and all that. But again, I know that's tough in an autistic situation. Like, intermittent fast, right? Yeah. So, but those things help. But then past that, we can begin to supplement. So almost any kind of anti-parasitic is going to help an autistic situation. It's not going to cure it, it's not going to fix it, it's going to help it, all right? It's going to help it. So anything that we can do to get bacterial load down, bacterial kind of load under control. If you have an infection, again, what happens if this is likely, this loop, is if you've got an infection or a disrupted biome, a lot of your immune system is going to be focused on that rather than focused on other things. So the more that we can support that immune system, the better. I'm sure you guys, you look online and you see all these kind of miracle stories and all that. And there is no miracle cure or anything yet. But most of those things that you see, where all of a sudden the kid will pop out and become verbal again or things like that, are going to be something that is dealing with parasites, with pathogens, with some kind of anti-parasitic type of thing. So there's hope. There's big hope. But again, we've got to cry, we've got to scream, we've got to beg for those research dollars. Because those are really, 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 really important. And they're not, they're not there the way that you think that they're there right now. So they're just not. Does anybody have any questions? Does anybody have any questions about the endocannabinoid system, about autism, how it relates, about the biome? All of these kiddos have a disrupted biome, and there are certain bacteria that it looks like is associated with kind of this biome disruption. There's been research to completely replace the biome. That's been somewhat effective, but it isn't by any means the be-all end-all answer. But we know kind of between the way that these kiddos break down the fats, the endocannabinoid system, and the biome, the answer is in there. The disruption is in there. So hopefully you're
So earlier we talked about, Chip also does bioresonance scanning, and you can get it done today if you want, but I had Owen, my 8-year-old son who has nonverbal autism. Y'all can hear me, right? Okay. So I had a question about the products. So they also have products. I did a bioresonance scan about a month ago. I have rheumatoid arthritis. As Cassie stated earlier, a lot of times those autoimmune issues do go hand in hand with children on autism spectrum, but I had started on a product called Blast over here because I did have parasites, and I know that sounds gross, but most of you do too. So Owen did it earlier, and he also had parasites, so they are working on developing hopefully a liquid form that we can get our children to take. But I was just going to ask what are your thoughts about adding an omega-3 into that so we can also deliver that omega-3 to them as well? Is that something that we've discussed, and anything else that they're lacking, that they might need?
Yeah, and that's really, you're right. So one of the problems with, let's say, designing medication or building formulations for anybody, but certainly for autistic kids in particular, is most of the stuff that we work with nature, so we work with natural products and all that. When you begin to make formulations that really help you, they don't taste good. They don't taste good at all. They taste bad. So getting a kid to take something that's going to be really good for them, but that tastes really bad, is a tough go. And so we have tablets, and the tablets don't have much taste, but we are going to try to work on something that's efficacious, that has kind of the power of some of the medicines that we have without all the taste, to try to help make it more palatable. And we work with the autism community for 6 years, and we know, but it's getting your kid to take something is almost as much of a challenge as efficacy of that thing, right? Yeah.
Can you just talk a little bit about the Bible study, how they can see the actual, what's provided?
Yeah. So what's we all have, so if you think you know, it's easier for you than you do. So what's wrong with most of us, honestly? You know, God's a perfect engineer. So do we die of a heart attack? Do we die of renal failure? You know, that's what it's going to say on my death certificate, but is that really why I died? I mean, God doesn't cause your kidney to fail today just because, right? It takes something for that kidney to fail. And again, what most of the time that is some kind of pathogen, meaning a bacteria, a fungus, a parasite, something, right? So it takes something for us to fail. So what we try to do is identify what those things are. Now in autism, it's when I scan autistic kids, it's like I'm scanning somebody who's 50 years old. Because they're so concerned, their immune system is so concerned with whatever is kind of, let's say, the underlying cause of the autism, they don't have the same resources that we do to defend themselves against a lot of other stuff that we get, like Virtural and pylori and Epstein-Barr virus and all this kind of stuff. So they're a little more susceptible. They're very susceptible to stuff that will invade our mucosal layer. So these things called hook-round pinworms. And they're susceptible because they don't make IgA, which is an antibody that we make to defend that layer at the same level that we do. And there's reasons for that. Cinnamon, by the way, helps kick up that layer. You know, so cinnamon is just a really good thing as a supplement. Right? It doesn't really matter if you have autism or not. But anyway, we try to help identify what those pathogens are. So with autism, it's, you know, this is something that I'm kind of an expert in, is kind of this pathogenic, let's say, code, what happens to us, how we get sick, how this drags us down, how it can cause heart failure, how it can cause kidney failure, how it can cause anything failure. But in autism, it almost looks like autism is like a cancer with a white blood cell. So there's a lot of the same pathology that happens in cancer that happens in autism. Again, they don't get, you know, obviously eaten up. But inside of them, it's a lot of the same, let's say, sickness and pathogenesis. Cells get stuck in the water, they're kind of eating a lot of glucose, you know, have the same needs. The immune system is stuck in the system. So, anyway, whatever that bug is, and again, it likely is not a single bug, it's likely kind of a conformational change in the biome that is an underlying kind of cause of autism that can be, say, caused in a lot of different ways. We can't yet identify that on that machine. But what we can identify, and again, this machine is it's not meant to diagnose disease. I'm a doctor, I can do that anyway. I'm not a doctor, I can do that anyway. But it's just informational, so it is an informational device. But it's great at identifying pathogens, which is a big source of fun. All right. So, yes.
When you say you're not identifying what's a primary contributory factor to this disruption of the biome. Have you seen or have they identified any major phenomenon for this disruption in biome kids?
Yeah, it's definitely has to do with the conformational aspects of the bacteria that are in the biome. And so there's a recent study that says that basically bifidum, so there's something called bifidum bacteria, are greatly diminished. This kind of balance between bacterioids and chromaticus is greatly altered. There's a type of bacteria called Clostridium. Clostridium bacteria, C. difficile, you know, is a big one. Clostridium bacteria are something that get dysregulated in a lot of neurological diseases. Clostridium bacteria is looking like some of these bacteria can change something called, they can change our bile. They can basically take our bile, they can alter it, and they can build their own salts from it. It gets stored in our gallbladder. As weird as this all sounds. that they basically hijack our bile processes. Colostrum is one that does that, but this hijack of the bile process is something that's deeply involved in autism. So it could be different bacteria in different cases, but it's always a bile salt hydrolase hijack that happens in the biome. And if that also is deeply involved in the pathology of obesity as well. It turns out that we build a satiety molecule, a molecule that says that I'm full, I've had enough, I don't need to eat anymore. And that molecule is an endocannabinoid, it's called oleomine, so oleomine, and it's built from olive oil, it's built from oleic acid, right? So in a perfect world, if we weren't all bacterially hijacked, we could just take a little olive oil, we'd all feel full, we don't have to eat anymore. But because of this cluster of bacteria and things like it, they can hijack bile salt hydrolase, which causes a conformational change in our bile, which alters this enzyme that basically creates this molecule that says that I'm full. So if I'm a bacteria, it's great for me. I completely fixed you, where you'll eat as much sugar as you possibly can. I'm advantaged, right? So these bacteria are smart, and they know how to hijack this in the right way. But again, understanding what they do and understanding how we work, we can get in the middle of these things, we get rid of them, pull them off. So if you have a Clostridium overgrowth, again, fiber from apple cider vinegar and celery, we'll kind of fix that. So, not quite so with the autism biome. It's tough. It's not going to change my diet. So we've got to figure out what the book is that's changing. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's what I was wondering, is it back further when we're talking about these simple discrimination body, but is it chronic use?
It's just
something like that.
It's
it causes the dysregulation.
Yeah, it's an enzyme.
Suppresses atrophy function, and all of a sudden it's inflammatory, and you guys see where all the
You use that one for me? I know.
It's an enzyme called NAPLD. And NAPLD is how you, from the fats that you eat, it's how you build endocannabinoids that regulate everything about you. So you have two critical enzymes in your body, one called delta-6 desaturase and the other one called NAPLD. If I break those two enzymes, you're pretty well screwed. You're going to be, seriously, neurodevelopment-wise, immune-wise, and guess what's broken in autism? But it ends up as a result of his biome, that's kind of where the way that our endocannabinoid system works. So none of us eat the right diet. If we all ate the right ratios of saturated fat, monounsaturated fat, and omega-3, omega-6 fatty acids, we really wouldn't need a biome. We really wouldn't need much of a microbiome. The purpose of the biome really is to offset our bad diet and to build all these short-chain fatty acids that save our life. They help build our immune system. They kind of save us from ourselves, let's say. But we wouldn't, if we knew how to eat right, we wouldn't need much of a biome. So kind of getting in the middle of all that mess, that autism at almost the highest level of how you function is dietary fats that are broken in how we deal with dietary fats, which you have to have been a conformational change in the biome in order to save your life. It kind of builds up a better immune system than we have, but at the same time it causes autism. And that's why it's so complicated and hard to get. Right. What else? Yes, sir.
Can you kind of direct us towards some books or resources that we could read more on this? Because I'm sure you could answer questions for probably the next 24 hours and not answer all of our questions, but is there somewhere you could direct us to kind of do some self-research on that?
So it's hard to find authority. Yes, and I'll get to it, but let me give you some explanation first. So it's hard to find authorities here unless you're really good at reading research papers. If you're really good at reading research papers, PubMed is your place, and really autism, the endocannabinoid system, some of these enzymes are good search terms to begin to look for the current papers and stuff that are coming out. There's not a lot of people who are really, deep into, there's a lot of, let's say, people who are taking what other people are saying and talking about it. And, you know, there's some interesting therapies and stuff that are out there for autism, and I would say as a community, listen to all of them, consider all of them, but also discern through all of them, because a lot of people are just trying to kind of make money off you guys, right? And so you gotta discern through all of that. But again, PubMed, great place for information. You know, again, there's some sort of study eyes that you need to put on if you read a lot of studies. There's some things you need to look for. But there's studies that are coming out all the time on autism. And there's studies that are coming out on this conformational biome change, NAPLD. And again, if you're interested, grab a card, shoot me an email, I'll send you the kind of current studies. Cool. I do a podcast. I do a podcast randomly, usually every Friday. But it's called Chip Talk, so Chip Talk podcast. But thank you guys so much. This is great.
I did binge Chip after we met him at Finding Eve's wellness fair, and Brina was like, I'm going to get my scan, and I was like, that seems kind of sketchy. Like, I really was like, I don't know. And then he got up and he talked, and I was like, okay, maybe it is. And Brina came back, and I was like, everything okay? And she's like, girl, I got worms. And I was like, ew, you're nasty. And she's like, shut up, you probably do too. So, I had to go see if I had them too. But I was just blown away by the wealth of knowledge that Cindy and Chip have. And my skin, what's crazy is I go to a practitioner in Sherman, and I do blood work. And my blood work tells me, yeah, you got thyroid, you got Epstein-Barr, you got hormonal imbalance, but they could never tell me like why I had these things. I always would be like, why? And they're like, oh, you just do, and I get a pill. And I didn't tell Chip this, but we did our scan, and like all those things popped up on that scan, and I was like, okay, this is real. Like, it helped me verify like this is a great beneficial tool, and I am going to continue to use it, and the recommendations y'all gave me, I already feel better. And Brina and I both are affiliated with them now, so all their products go through our Mighty Moms page, or Mighty Moms, we have a new wellness page which I need to post. You can buy through there, and it helps us mamas who try to work hard for our kids, it does help us out. So, needless to say, we'll move on. I have Erica Beard coming up from she's a BCBA with Texoma ABA.
Hello, thank you for having me speak today. I'm going to talk a little bit about applied behavior analysis, what it is, what it means for you guys. So, it is a fact that getting an autism diagnosis is scary. It is also a fact that getting an autism diagnosis can lead to answers, it can lead to solutions, and it can lead to interventions and therapies. In Texas and Oklahoma, you do need an autism diagnosis to receive ABA therapy. And ABA therapy is one of the many therapies that can help a child with autism. A meta-analysis of studies showed that early intervention, getting some therapies early for your kiddos, it leads to better cognitive, social, emotional, and language functions. Additionally, there's higher access to tailored special education programs. You can get a diagnosis early when the child is young, which will in turn lead to better academic outcomes and social opportunities. There's also data that shows that if you can get an early diagnosis, you can have lower healthcare costs long-term. So the cost of therapies long-term will be lower if you can start early. And additionally, which I know all your mamas need, is reduced stress for the family. It's still going to be stressful. It's still going to be hard. And if I could take that away from you guys, I would. But there is research that shows that early intervention can lead to long-term reduced stress. You might know this. So what is applied behavior analysis? like I said, one of the many therapies. There's physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy. There's ABA therapy. ABA works to decrease all of those really challenging behaviors that we see in our kids sometimes by increasing replacement skills. So we might teach skills. We want to increase the skills of communication, play skills, social skills, daily living skills. And we are going to increase those skills as a means to decrease those challenging behaviors. Tantrum, aggression, elopement. So how do we do this? We're going to increase those skills, teach those skills with evidence-based teaching strategies. We're not making this stuff up, guys. We are getting this stuff from research articles. We're looking at what has worked and how it's been done. We're using evidence-based practices. And we're using positive reinforcement. And how do we decrease those behaviors? We're going to analyze the behaviors. We're going to determine the function, which means the reason, SEAT. You guys learned the reasons for some behaviors earlier. And then we're going to take that function or that reason and we're going to outline a plan for preventing and responding to the behavior. So when you are starting ABA therapy, it's a little bit of a process. So if you are ready for ABA therapy, step one, you need a diagnosis of autism. I will say there are ABA therapies that work with kids outside of the autism spectrum. My first ABA job, I actually worked with children with PTSD and eating disorders. However, in Oklahoma and Texas right now, you do need a diagnosis of autism to receive ABA therapy. You need a diagnosis, and often, especially if you are working through Medicaid providers, you need a referral from your doctor, referring you saying, hey, I recommend ABA therapy. And it's signed by that PCP. Step two, you're going to need to find an ABA provider. I'm going to go over in a second some things that you might look for or ask when you're looking for an ABA provider. Step three, say you found somewhere. You are going to get an ABA assessment from a board-certified behavior analyst or a BCBA. They're going to do an assessment and then develop, step four, a treatment plan. That treatment plan is going to say, okay, what skills do we want to increase? What behaviors do we want to decrease? How are we going to assist the parent? How many hours a week might this take? That gets submitted to step five, the insurance company. And we're going to wait for that insurance approval. Step six, you are going to receive ongoing ABA therapy. It includes your child going to ABA therapy and getting one-on-one work with behavior technicians. It also includes you as parents and caregivers and grandmas getting parent guidance from a BCBA. And then step seven, you're going to repeat some of these steps every 3 to 6 months, depending on your insurance and Medicaid provider. You're going to repeat the assessment, treatment plan, reauthorization. And then step 8, this is what we always look for, is transitioning out of ABA services, because we love your kiddos, but we don't want you guys having 40 hours a week of ABA therapy for the entirety of your child's life. The goal is to get them independent, increase those skills, and send them out to whatever community resources you all want lined up afterwards. Is it school? Is it vocation? So that is the steps of an ABA process. Well, let's say you have a referral for ABA services. What should you look for? You should look for a convenient location. You might be going there 5 days a week. Your child might be going there up to 35 to 40 hours per week. And I will say, I've worked with so many mamas, we heard from one earlier, who make it their full-time job to drive their kid to therapies all day, every day, all week. And like, I live for you mamas. I don't know how you do it. You guys are heroes. However, if there are options, look at the different options for ABA therapy in your area. Find one that is a convenient location. Is it going to be on your way to work? Is it, at least near a highway where not out in the boonies, where you can, get there quickly. And also listen to a community that you trust. You guys have a beautiful community Where's your kids gone? Have you heard about this place? And then also, my big tip to you all would be tour this facility and ask questions. So what should you ask during a tour of an ABA center? You want to ask what insurance or Medicaid providers they accept. What ages do they accept? What do they use as reinforcement? Do they use punishment procedures? If they do, what does that look like? How do you keep children safe when they're having big behaviors or tantrums? What does a day of ABA therapy look like? And how much time will my child spend with peers or with the BCBA? So now I'm going to go over a few things that you might expect in ABA therapy, some common interventions that your child might be exposed to. So one of them is called priming. So think of that phrase, priming the pump. You are getting your kid ready for whatever's coming next. So you're preparing your child for an upcoming behavioral expectation. This is a preventative strategy, just like Samantha talked about earlier. Before the behavior happens, before the tantrum is likely to occur, you're going to get them ready. An example, we have 5 more minutes, and this timer goes off, it will make a sound, we're going to go to the car. You're getting them ready. Is it a guarantee that your kid will hear that noise and go to the car? No. It might not happen. This is just increasing the likelihood that your kid will hopefully do the thing that we want. Another example, when the bus comes, we're going to turn the iPad off. We're getting them ready. Because if they all of a sudden hear, oh, turn the iPad off, that is scary and stressful. I get it. I'm going to skip pre-MAC principle because I think Samantha did an amazing job explaining that. So pre-MAC principle remembers when she said first blank, then blank. This one is also called grandma's rule because all the grandmas say things like first eat your peas, then you can have dessert. Or for my mamas, first put the kids to bed, then you can have your glass of wine. Another common ABA intervention that we use is positive reinforcement. So we are going to give the child a cue or instruction. It's dinner time. Another cue is that the family is all sitting at the table. Another cue is that the parent says, come sit down. The behavior or response that we are looking for is that the child comes and sits in a chair at the table. So we are going to give positive reinforcement if that child comes and sits in that chair. Positive reinforcement might be in the form of social or attention. Thank you for sitting. It might be in the form of a tangible reinforcer. Present them with a preferred item. Hey, mamas, if that is an iPad at the table, I'm not judging. That is what gets me through dinner time. Or a natural reinforcement. Come sit at the table. The natural reinforcement is that you get a plate of yummy food. Sometimes our kids need some extra crumbs. They might not come and sit at the table right away, but even when they come sit at the table, even if it took us 10 minutes to get there, and we assisted them, we held their hand, give them that positive reinforcement. Another form of reinforcement is differential reinforcement. All right, this is where we're going to differentiate how we reinforce our child. So let's say we say, come sit down. There are 2 options here when your child sits down. One option is they come sit down, they just listen. Another option is they don't listen. They might take 10 minutes to get to the table. They might take me holding their hand and coming over here and giving some extra assistance. So either of those end with your child sitting at the table. So we're going to reinforce it either way. So if your child sits independently, big reward. Make it Disneyland. Give them the iPad to watch if you're fine with that, give them all the social praise. It's like, oh my gosh, you can even eat your crackers first. You don't even have to eat the peas first. Give them the big reward because they listen to you right away. Another option is they might not listen to you right away, but eventually they get to the table, reinforce it anyway. But it might be a smaller reward. It might be like, okay, we can watch, 10 seconds of Coco Melon and then we're going to start our dinner. Or whatever your smaller reward is. That's differential reinforcement. One behavior, the good behavior that we definitely want, big reward. A behavior that's maybe not ideal, but we're still going in the right direction, go ahead and reward it. Give it a smaller or different reward. We call it DRA because that's a long name. DRA is when your child might have a behavior that we don't want, like a tantrum. All right, we want to think, what is the reason for that tantrum? SEAT, find that reason, find that function. And we want to replace the tantrum with an alternative behavior. For example, if the function is for a tangible item, the child wants a toy, they can A, have a tantrum and get the toy. They can B, verbally tell you, or with an iPad, however they communicate, say, I want teddy bear. Or they could point to the teddy bear and receive the teddy bear. There are 3 options. Your child might choose the tantrum to get that teddy bear. What we want to do is we want to identify that and say, I know that they're doing this because they want this toy. I want to prompt or give them a cue and reward a more appropriate option. So they're tantruming because they want the toy. Instead of tantrum, I want my child to point to the toy. So I'm going to gently prompt them, hey, do this, point to the toy. And as soon as that child points to the toy, I'm going to reward them. Forget the fact that we are mad about this massive tantrum they just threw and the house is a mess because they threw stuff all over the room. Reward the behavior that we want to replace. Eventually, we will keep doing that. Consistency is key. And we will teach the child that there are other ways to get what I want, and it might eventually be easier to point to the toy than to throw a big old tantrum. And that is our goal in ABA. I want to just thank you guys again for bringing services to this area, for bringing a support system to this area, and thank you for letting me speak today. I will say to you guys, I do have some handouts that go over some of these strategies, have some of what I talked about today. If you would like any of the handouts, please come see me in the back afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, today our last guest speaker is coming to you from Texoma Swim Academy. Here to talk about swim safety is Christy Faulkner.
And this is really challenging to follow up with all of you smart, amazing people, and I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me here. So I'm first going to start with the benefits of swim for children with autism. And those benefits are physical, emotional, social, cognitive, and verbal improvement. I have many texts and testimonies from parents whose children have been in our swim program, and after 4 sessions, they begin to say 1 or 2 more words, or while we're working in the water, sorry, I'm very distracted, so I'm a little distracted, sorry. Working in the water, I had a child say, in the deep end. He had never said that phrase, but when I said, okay, baby, we're going to go to the deep end and we're going to practice this skill, he said, in the deep end. And that was the first time that phrase had ever been said. So the water brings about cognitive connection. Also, I'm going to speak to something that Jake said. He said, the world won't change for us. But I'm going to tell you, at Texoma Swim Academy, we change their worlds every minute. Like, every child that comes into our water has a different need, and so we change that world every time a new child comes. I just want to affirm that. And the third thing I want to say before I start into my water safety and some resources for you guys is that my journey started with autism when I did a practicum in college for reading and special ed. And I had 2 autistic children in our practicum class, and one of them had a fixation with cars. He would bring all of his Hot Wheels cars into the room, our classroom, and we made a parking lot in his desk. And so he would line them up inside the desk. And so our first then was first park the cars, then work. Then we'd say first park the cars, then work. Then we'd move after work to playing with the cars. The cars had to be in the parking lot to play. So that's my introduction to you of who I am. And why I'm here is I have chosen to bring my passion for special education and individualized education to the water. And that is right here. So, talking about autism and the water and swim safety, first I'm going to address for you what you can do at home. There is an Instagram account, and I'm sure you can find them online called Watermelon, and they start with water acclimation in the bathtub. And it's great for any children. It's great for parents of any children, whether they're autistic or neurotypical. Another thing is some angelfish, who I have received all of my training from. They are a well-known worldwide training team of an OTPT, and they certify water safety instructors and adaptive swim methods that we all implement into our swim instruction. So most of what you're going to hear today is their content that I'm teaching you. I will not take credit for the things that I preface once I get to a certain point, because that's their content. But it is definitely the water safety we hear about. NDPA is a National Drowning Prevention Alliance. They provided a lot of the resources I have on my table. They're also great for water safety tips for all kids, and they do have an autism segment within their alliance. Also, before I go into all my parent tips with my acronym, bath time safety. On my table, I have a sticker that you can put in your bathtub, or you can give to someone who has an infant or a child of 0 to 2. And it is a reminder that 2 inches of water for under 2 is an adequate amount of water to bathe a child, but also a safe amount of water, so they're not at drowning risk. Teach your child to wait for an adult to get into any body of water or to turn the bathtub on. And I can speak to this. I'm a Gigi, I'm 50, and I recently have acquired a son-in-law in the last 3 years and a grandson. And I can tell you that within my time with him, we've created a routine of, bath time, reading time, bottle time, nap time, right? Those things in that order. And we've always said, wait for Gigi to turn the water on, wait for Gigi, wait for Gigi. But when I say bath time, Archie goes to that room, through the bedroom, to the bathroom, and stands. I'm not kidding. It will probably change. I'm not lying. It'll change, the boy. But he stands. And he doesn't move the curtain, he just stands. Wait for Gigi, wait for Gigi. He just waits for Gigi, y'all. So you need to start your language early, because they're very capable of learning. Even autistic children, if they can't speak it to you, they're retaining it. And I think that we learned that from Tammy in her podcast. So teach it. Don't be afraid to teach it. They're retaining it. So teach that rhythm, language, and routine of wait for an adult. Also, develop a routine of picking up the toys after bath time, because when you pick up the toys and you show them, pull the plug, and you wait for that tub to drain, you're teaching them we're not leaving the body of water available for them to get to later. Okay, and you're also reminding yourself we need to empty that tub every time we take a bath before you get them out into the tub. So they see it, it's emptying. Keep the bathroom door closed at all times. Okay, so when you're done bathing your child, shut the door. You're closing off access to that tub and to the toilet. Okay, so shut the door. You're done. Even at an early age, I think I already said that, you guys are always listening and they're learning and they're retaining. Okay, in the bath time, you can teach breath control. Even autistic children can learn breath control. They can learn how their body works. They can learn to hum in the water. They can learn to blow bubbles. They can learn that if you teach them how to blow their food, right? Copycat. Y'all know copycat, okay? Do all the copycat you can in the bathtub. Then we take that to the pool, okay? Now I'm going to go into our 5 layers of protection, which is going to merge into our water safety tips. But barriers and alarms. Barriers and alarms provide a way for us to know if the door is open or to keep a child from getting to a body of water. We have put door alarms on all of our exterior doors in our home. Now that we have a grandson, we didn't raise children with a pool. If you have doors, you need alarms so that you know the child is going outside to body of water. If you have a pool, I would recommend a fence around the pool, whether it's a perimeter fence or a close proximity fence. Also, we have just acquired an AI camera that is from Full Scout, and what it does is it sends an alarm to my phone and 3 other phones that are connected to it, that when a child is within 10 feet of the perimeter of the pool, it will notify us. So we have that much time to get there before we get in the water. That's something else. Also, water competency is our first goal in Technology Academy, which is water safety. We do incorporate confidence and empowerment in our lessons, and I think that Brenda and Cassie can attest to that. We're not mean teachers. We're strict and we're routine, and we have our methods, but we teach competency before confidence. So we don't want our kids to be overconfident that they're safe in the water before they're actually safe in the water. That's what that means. Also, we advocate for life jackets. Every child should have a life jacket. My grandson has a life leaving tomorrow, we're going to the river for 4 days, he will wear a life jacket if he steps off the porch. Okay, and when I say life jacket, I mean, this part proof. If they're under a certain age, you need to have the flap in the back so that it encourages the back foot. Also, practice with that. Like, get them in the room. Don't just stick it on and expect them to be comfortable in it, because you all know your kids don't like itchy, tight things, right? And life jackets are not comfortable. You have to practice wearing a life jacket. Practice out of the water, practice in the water. Require it every time you step off the porch. Emergency preparation. All of you need to be CPR certified if you have a child. If you have a child, you need to be CPR certified. If you're around water, you need to be CPR certified. And make sure that someone, if you're around water, someone within your company is aware that they're watching children and that someone is going to be in charge if something happens. Okay. Now I'm going to move to our parent acronym. So, Swim Angelfish is, as I said, a team of an occupational and physical therapist, Amy and Cindy, and I call them by first name, so they have become dear friends to me since COVID. When COVID came, my spring school roster tripled in numbers because all the pools have been 30 miles shut down, as you know, right? And so with that came an increase in ADHD, autism, sensory processing, and then some behavior disorders. And with my STEM degree, I still did not know what I was doing. I got scared. I wanted to quit. I was like, this is too much. I don't know what I'm doing. First of all the kids, all the new kids, all the new parents, and then all the neurodivergent things. And so I jumped literally into all that Swim Angelfish had to offer, and I became certified the fall of COVID. And started implementing those certification training methods the very next summer, and I believe that's when I had open. Yes. So I'm going to go into their acronym parent. And the first thing they talk about in their training that we implement is properties of water, surface tension. So we know that we have our sensory seekers, and something that we do with our autistic swimmers is we do a lot of what we call heavy work. We let them splash the water. We have small dumbbells, let them in the water. That is a very good physiological brain response for them, and it regulates them to the point where we can then move into a skill. Okay, and so we do heavy work for our sensory seekers, and that's part of the properties of water. Then we move into our hydrostatic pressure, which is another sensory seeking property. Some kids love to go to the bottom. If you have a bottom seeker, when they go below that surface of water, they feel like someone's hugging them. In fact, I had a kid tell me, Miss Christy, when I swim, I feel like I'm just getting a hug all the time. They want to feel that hug. So encourage that, but make sure you're encouraging that after they know how to breathe right? So just know that's that reason. Buoyancy. When they get in the water, there's that weird feeling of gravity and displacement and their bodies, going back and forth and all these things. And when we're teaching them to float, it's really important that we do the heavy work and that we talk about, or that we implement some things to give them sensory seeking properties to get into the buoyancy, because that helps them to regulate that sensory processing that they have. It can be challenging for some autistic children to be in the water and have our skin is the biggest sensory organ of our body. So they're just being inundated with all the things in the water. So we want to really make sure that we give them time to acclimate to that feeling of buoyancy before we teach them floating. Awareness is the A in our parent acronym, and that is a lot of things, but I'm going to start with don't be afraid to be a leader. In my latest training, Aileen, the physical therapist, talked about the need for us to be aware as parents, caregivers, providers of autistic children. If you see an autistic child, for instance, I'll tell you, this 17-year-old that she talked about ran from a parking lot into an aquatic center, stripped his shorts off, jumped into the pool naked. And she's the only person who actually knows who that boy is, because for 6 years she had been providing aquatherapy for him. And instead of just standing poolside waiting for the parent to come in the door, she took action. She was aware. He did something he shouldn't do. She knew he was autistic. He wasn't her client at the time, but she had had him previously, so she jumped in. And she jumped in with this. She said, first trunks, then swim. First trunks, then swim. Like, she had her phrase, right? She had it, she knew it, she took action. So be aware when you see something like that. Don't be afraid to be the leader. don't be afraid to be the one that takes action because there was no one else in that building who knew him and who he was needing. Safety first, teach them to ask again before going in the water. I'm going back to that because that's such a good thing. Y'all, we have to believe and know that what you're teaching them, you're hearing and retaining. I mean, Jake told us, you talk all around them for people that they hear you. They hear what you're saying and know what you're saying. Familiarize them with the rescue tube. Throw it out to them. Talk to them about it. Let them feel it. Let them stand up and hold it. Strap it around them. Let them know if someone's in trouble, this is what we use to get them out of the water. If you're in trouble, we're going to get you out of the water with this. Okay? Because if a child's in trouble and someone throws that at them for the first time, their sensory issues, they're going to back off. They're not going to know what to do. But teach them to be familiarized with what that rescue tube is. Environment awareness, I think I talked about with the AI safety equipment, but also talk to them about the perimeters of the pool. This is how deep this pool is. I think it's only use short commands like stop. He didn't have the word water, because something about pizza. Something about it, they said no pizza, he would not be happy. So I was trying to get him to stop at a certain point before he jumped in, but be at a deep enough level. I was like, don't use no, because he would shut down and he'd just be like, I'm not doing that. And I would say, no, cool hair. He would start to sit, and so she said, you stop. So our key word was stop. He would stop here, then jump, right? So teach them, walk them around the pool. This is where you can jump here, climb out here, use your phrases, but get them familiar with the safety zones of whatever body of water you're in. Spend time with them in the water, with them arm's distance, without any life jacket on. With them arm's distance. Once they've experienced that feeling of buoyancy and the hyperstatic pressure, all the things, give them an opportunity to feel that water without you touching them. Let them feel their body in the water so they can regulate and learn to acclimate to that feeling. That's going to help them progress in all the things that we do to teach them to float and swim and come out. The R in the parent acronym is routine, and we've heard a lot of this today, routine. Addressing excessive drinking, have a command, have a response for that. Then give them a foam letter to chew on to release that sensory need. If that's what you have to do, then teach them to hum. They can hold a foam letter in their mouth and hum, and air is coming out of their nose. Teach them these things. They're capable of learning and applying them. So don't be afraid to create a routine that prevents excessive drinking, but also gives them an opportunity for breath control. Take side, jump into parents. Use commands that they can understand. Create a command, create a code of words. I've worked with Brooks on when he jumps in, we turn and go to the wall. He knows that. Yeah, jump, turn. We do a lot of repetitive teaching. You have to use the same phrases so that they remember them. Take side is another phrase we use with our jump in and turn to the side. Transitions, we've heard a lot about that today. We need transition phrases for our kids. It may be your own phrase, but we have transitions for entering the water, exiting the water, jumping in the water, being in the water. One kiddo I had to have a transition word for, submersion. Like he would get in the water and he'd say, swim, swim, and he would just disappear. And just sit on the bottom of the water, and he can hold his breath for an incredible amount of time. Yeah, he's one of yours. Yeah. He would just sit there, and y'all, it's so great because he's just so excited, and he's spinning, and he's laughing, and I'm like, come back. So create words and phrases for them to know their limits, okay? Always give them an adequate time warning. I purchased last year a huge time clock. The kids love it, y'all. It's like, I purchased it from this guy who actually sells them to spin, like, he sells them, he's at the trials for the Olympics, okay? So he sells these big clocks to real competitive swim people. I am not a competitive swim person, but I have this huge clock. It's this wide, with bright green numbers, and it counts down, right? And I've already seen just great results. One kid wanted to improve his tread time. He didn't want me to count. He didn't want to count. He literally watched the clock, and he increased his treading time by a minute because he kept seeing that number move, and he kept challenging himself. And so, give them a time. Give them time for when it's time to get out or get in, or give them that transition time. Stick to your plan. Create rhythms of no's. Autism Academy is work first and play. That's a big phrase that we use. Familiarize them with equipment, talk to them about lifeguards. What are lifeguards? What do lifeguards do? Why are they here? If you ever need a lifeguard, this is what, tap, tap. Familiarize the lifeguard with your child and their needs. That's a big thing. And I gave you a link on that first page. I'm going a little fast. But on that first page, right under what can I do at home, there's a link to some anglefish with adaptive swim tips for parents. It's a free mini course. Somewhere on that page you can find a YouTube that talks to you about how you can educate lifeguards about your child's needs. Because if you go to a public pool, and they're yelling at a kid to quit running, okay, and your child's nonverbal, and they're also sick, they're literally going to just either melt down or keep running and put someone else in danger. So informal lifeguards about your child, talk to your child about who lifeguards are. The E in our parent acronym is equipment. I talked about the rescue tube. We use a lot of equipment in our instruction. We taper every day. We will never just use equipment. We will always taper off to create muscle memory and build that independent swimming for them. If something doesn't work with your equipment or anything, change it. We have all the equipment, I think. I don't know what all you have. The barbell. The noodle. Yeah, I haven't done anything. But use whatever they can be successful with. The N in our acronym is never give up. And another phrase we use is practice makes progress. And an example of this is my same kiddo from Radiant. I wish I could say his name and not get in trouble because he is special to me. But anyway, he progressed slower than we had hoped, but one day his float just came because he did that stimming underwater. He was doing his thing underwater, and he looked his head up, and his whole body was him, and he just floated. Right? But there were so many practices that brought to that progress. Okay? I will never tell a kid practice makes perfect. My kid is never perfect. And just this week, we're working with a Downs friend, and he's come 6 times. And this week, we implemented some speech therapy that Dad shared with us in the water. He down to get the breath control. He copycatted. We went across the pool. My assistant and I had his hands. I'm copycatting. And then the third time, he went, woo, and he just went underwater. And he came out, and there was no choking, there was no coughing, and he did it for 8 or 10 minutes. We just kept going back and forth so we could practice that skill. So practice makes progress. He's not swimming, but he met a goal of breath control by lesson 6. So that's that. Tips: time, temperature, and training. If you're putting your child in swim lessons for water safety, think about the time of day. I know last summer, you guys brought groups before ABA. I have a lot of parents. I'll work with them 8 to 8:30 or 3:30 to 4 or 5 to 5:30 because it's before or after therapy. Temperature is a big deal. I bought a heat pump because I know the temperature of the water needs to be a certain temperature to get adequate progress. Are they overstimulated? If you're bringing a child that's just coming from something like ABA or maybe a library time or whatever, if they're overstimulated from an activity, I will request not to see them that day, and maybe another day we don't have an activity right before, because we can't progress with water safety instruction if they're overstimulated. Okay, S is the last thing, and this is some ideas. We implement an acclimation time for our kids, just for them to feel the water first, or maybe just pull them around on a noodle. So it's called a warm-up for little kids, but their acclimation time for autistic kids. Let them feel the water first. Rockets. These kids are very capable of going to the bottom and pushing up off the bottom. They can feel their feet on the bottom. They know when they push up, oh, they head down the water. That's a rescue skill, but it's also an acclimation time for them. Another some idea is wall crawl, monkey crawl, spider crawl, whatever you want to call it. Teach them how to scale the wall. Use their hands. Again, copycat. Show them how your hands move, how your feet move on the wall to an exit. That's an excellent thing to do with them. Take side is another phrase we need to be using with all of our kids, but especially autistic children need to hear those phrases over and over and over. It works. They're going to fall in, jump in, and they're going to go, oh, take side. Even if they can't say it, they know what it is. Jump in, practice guided back quote. That is where we practice practice jumping in because they may call in or they may decide to jump in at some point. I want them to remember, oh, when I jump in, I'm either going to turn or grab that wall or I'm going to run back. So those are some ideas that we implement. One more thing before I wrap up. Some Angelfish is so good about providing tools for me as an instructor, but also for you guys. So if you go to that link I gave you on the first page, you can navigate their website and there are videos. If you're not finding something you need, you're welcome to email me or text me and I will get with them and they will send you something from YouTube that helps you because they have case studies, they have lots of free videos that you guys can watch to educate you. And that's the whole thing, is education and equipping parents. So, do you guys have any questions? I talk really fast. Okay. Great. Thank you.
That wraps up all of our speakers for today. I did want to take a moment and say thank you to our sponsors, which would be JK Farms, Radiant Autism Center, thank you, and the Owen Academy. And then also thank you to each one of you who are here as vendors with information for our autism community. Thank you if you're here as a guest for supporting this cause and just being here. It means a lot to us and it shows us that we need to keep doing this and that we'll have another one next year and so on. So thank you so much and you all are dismissed.